Sword of Coming Chapter 986. In spring the trees are blooming like brocade and flocks of orioles in the mountains rise and fall. Lu Yen smiled and said, as a sect, Luopao Mountain has fewer cultivators. Obviously, there are more than 10 vassal hilltops and there are few people in the mountains, which is also a miracle. In my impression, on the Beiju Luzhou side, the lying peak of Huolong Zhenren is already considered a few immortal Taoists in the Haoren sect. It still has 4 Taoist veins. Ghosts are the deepest in the world. The Taoshan monks are proficient in thunder, and the Baiyin lineage trainers are good at talisman formation. In addition, Yuan Lingdian's Xishuan line belongs to the Daomen Sword Immortal School. Together, the 4 magic lines add up to more than 100. There must be a Taoist priest. On the other hand, Luopao Mountain has never had the kind of large-scale branching and dispersing of ordinary immortal mansions. It may be that when it comes to accepting apprentices, the members of the Patriarch Hall have high thresholds. Qin Pingon smiled and said, Cui Dongshen's Qingping Sword Sect, the number of people may double in a few years. If there are dates and no dates, we will have 3 poles. Our sect Master Cui has great ambitions and promises that every time he will attend the next sect in the future. Zhou, the mighty cross-continent to worship ancestors, must surpass Luopa Mountain in numbers and must not lose momentum. Later, Lu Yen took the initiative to say that he wanted to pay respects to the incense at Ji Sifeng Patriarch Hall. Although Qin Pingon was a little surprised, it was a pleasant surprise after all, and of course he would not refuse such a good thing. Lu Yen said with a smile that when he was wandering in the Qingming world, he had been fortunate enough to participate in the 3-religion debate several times, and most of them wanted to doze off, but the debate that Wen Xing participated in was the most exciting and refreshing. Gong drilling pot umbrella, chain, teaching, chanting. It's just that they were about to move when a white-haired boy with a book and a chicken span pen hung a sword talisman issued by Longquan Jianzong on his waist, and rushed to the wind. Previously, the ancestor of the hidden official allowed her, a handyman disciple, to compile the chronology and record the arrival of distinguished guests, which was also the responsibility of the editor. The mountain patrol envoy of the little water monster inside is the same. Just now he was on the side of Riding Dragon Lane, and this outer demon noticed the vision on the top of the second peak of Luopa Mountain and was shocked. The white-haired boy hurried to the top of the steps of Qilong Lane, staring wide-eyed at Luopao Mountain. Falling to the ground, he performed a qi technique that was secretly passed down from the palace, and saw layers of crimson halos blooming. Even if the white-haired boy was far away in Qilong Alley, just looking at it from a distance, he felt like he was in the middle of several fire dragons. In the circling furnace, after a battle between heaven and man, the white-haired boy still came to Luopa Mountain bravely. Lu Yen glanced at the white-haired boy and was quite surprised. In that Huaihuang County, there was actually an Ascension Realm Transfiguration demon? Isn't it taboo at the Confucian Temple? However, Lu Yen was soon relieved. The Confucian Temple should have known about this long ago and chose to turn a blind eye. What's more, Qin Pingon has a senior like Cui Yu to help protect the Tao, and a gentleman like Lao Xiaozai restores the position of the idol in the Confucian Temple. Qin Pingon said in his heart, "It's hard to say a word." Lu Yen nodded. Every family has a hard-to-recite scripture, so I don't ask any more questions from an outsider. The reason why the Confucian Temple side is willing to acquiesce to this is mainly because this outer demon is from the Great Wall of Sword Qi. The 3 Confucian leaders and vice-presidents, the academy and many Confucian temples to accompany the sages, may not give face to a young hidden official, but must give face to the eldest sword fairy. After seeing the Taoist Chunyang, the white-haired boy became more and more panicked, as if he jumped into the alchemy furnace and turned around, regretting that he should not come, absolutely should not come. This Taoist priest, I don't know what magical powers he cultivated, was able to naturally defeat the outer demons. Lu Yen had to deliberately gather a Taoist method, condensing it into a grain of true yang, which was entrenched in one of the acupuncture points of life, and ripples appeared on his Taoist robe imperceptibly. The white-haired boy was instantly relieved and with a stubborn temper he thanked the real person. Qin Pingon introduced with a smile. This Master Lu, whose name is Chunyang, was born in our Aquarius continent. Senior Lu, her name is Kong Ho, has not joined Jiasfeng's genealogy for the time being, and is helping out at Qilong Lane. Now I'm in charge of compiling Shantao's chronology. The main peak of Luopao Mountain is Jiling Peak. The Zushi Hall is built on the side of Jisa Peak, the second peak. Qin Pingon took Lu Yen to Jisa Peak. Xiao Mo, who put a hand on the head of the sable-cap girl as well as the white-haired boy and Xianwei, also came here to join in the fun. It was said that it happened to be a grand event, and it was necessary to leave a memorial. The chronology she compiled had to be distinguished from the chronology of ordinary sections. Qin Pingon was at a loss, so he didn't rush to say whether he agreed or not. Writing a chronology is a very serious matter. How can this guy still be a monster? The white-haired boy said that he is actually a deeply hidden landscape painter. It is rare for everyone to gather on the side of Jisa Peak. It is better to use the Zushitang as the background. Everyone stands in line and sits. The chair, anyway, is to leave a famous painting similar to the elegant collection. In this way the chronology will be vivid. On a certain day of a certain year, the mountain owner and the distinguished guest, the real person Chunyang, were outside the patriarch's hall of Jiasfeng. Xiao Mo, the gatekeeper Xianwei, etc., are enshrined in a landscape painting scroll. Qin Pingon smiled and said, "The chronology with paintings, in addition to the written records, there are illustrations and they are also painted, right? Is this what you call different?" He has regretted letting this guy compile the chronology of the abbot. Well, before the next meeting of the Ancestors' Hall is officially held, he has to talk to Zhu Lianyuanshu and the others. "I personally recommended you to take up this position, but only the owner of the mountain nodded, no one agreed, all objected, and it was useless." Xiego gave up pestering Xiao Mo, straightened his sable hat with both hands, patted his cheek and echoed loudly, "Okay, this is a good idea. I want to stand by Xiao Mo's side." I never thought that. Lu Yen smiled and said, "When I paint a picture in front of a patriarch's hall, it will also be compiled into the chronology. It's the first new thing that Pindao thinks is good." The white-haired boy was grateful, sniffed, and finally met his confidant. "The Taoist priest Chunyang is really nice. No wonder the Taoist cultivation base is so high. First get the 14 realms, and then let Jisifeng be the deputy mountain master in name." Qin Pingon had no choice but to follow Kong Hao's message. "But you are the mastermind, so don't even try to run away." The white-haired boy first made the 5 people stand in a row and walked to the opposite side first, where he was choking on the steps, jumping and humming, and directly saw Qin Pingan's face sullen. "What would you do there?" Seeing the unhappy expression of the ancestor of the hidden official, the white-haired boy hurriedly stood still, his hands sank into his dantian, and he twisted his wrist again, and a figure of a woman with an indistinct figure appeared on the spot, wiping his left hand, spread out a picture. The snow-white painting scroll, and then lifted the sleeve on the right, holding a colored pen lingering in the color of multicolored glass in the right, and was about to start painting. Qin Pingan's face was expressionless. It was quite the same thing. The owner of the mountain, Qin Pingon, and the guest Lu Yen, stood in the middle together with Xiao Mo and Xiego, Xianwei and Kong Ho on the left and right. Before the woman with the crayon pen began to write, she carefully looked at everyone's raised heads. Her voice was clear and she said with a smile, "Sir Sean, don't be stern, give a little smile. It's still not sincere enough. You have to come from the heart. By the way, it is too lazy to put your hands in your sleeves, and it is too arrogant when you put your hands on your sleeves. It is better to stack your hands. Forget it, let your arms hang down naturally. Look at the side. Taoist Chunyang is very good, calm and relaxed, holding the sword on his back. He is indeed immortal. Xianwei Taoist, are you too nervous? Hurry up, wipe the sweat off your forehead and you want posted on the streets of Huaihuang County. Don't be too cautious, take a deep breath. Alas, it's much better now. My good Kong Ho, don't laugh so unladylike. Close your mouth. Do you want to eat people? Thank you, dog. Don't put your toes on your toes. Keep your head straight and don't push yourself into Xiao Mo's arms. The posture of arms around your chest is also good. Even if you lower your head a little bit, your nostrils will be turned upside down. Xiao Mo, you don't need to be next to Xiego shoulder to shoulder, but don't push her. This day is the 6th year of Junpei Dali, the 22nd day of the 1st month. Luopao Mountain, Jiasfeng, Zushitang Square. The owner of the mountain, Qin Pingon, has a white jade hairpin on his head, a green shirt, long coat and cloth shoes. The gatekeeper of Luopao Mountain, a Taoist priest, wears a cotton robe and treads on cloud shoes, and the Taoist name is Xianwei. Zanxian Lu Yen, the Taoist name is Chunyang. Dedicated to Xiao Mo, yellow hat, green shoes and green bamboo stick. Pseudonym unfamiliar, Taoist name Shizhu. The girl in the mink hat, now her pseudonym Xiego, has a long list of Taoist names, Beijing, Chaohua, exterior Yaoling, etc. The white-haired boy transformed into a demon. His pseudonym is Kong Ho, his real name is Natural. There are 6 in total, one of them is a warrior of the limit, 4 of the ascension, and a fake Taoist priest of the next 5. When the white-haired boy overlapped with the woman who put away the crayons, Qin Pingon and Lu Yen went down the mountain together, and Xiao Emo silently followed behind them. The sable-cap girl came to the white-haired boy and winked. The white-haired boy's nose is not nose and eyes not eyes. Well. Xiago stretched out his hand. Don't pretend to be stupid with me, Malua. Cut it out quickly. It's enough to have me and Xiao Emo on the picture scroll. Send me a picture and keep it as a souvenir. The white-haired boy put his arms around his chest and snorted coldly. This kind of landscape painting in your realm, you can draw whatever you want. Ask me for anything. Xiago's eyes were indifferent for a moment, staring at the white-haired short melon for a moment. Kong Ho tilted his head and stretched his neck, indicating that the other party had the ability to chop here. There is a hidden official ancestor afraid of you? The Ascension Realm Perfect Sword Cultivator, amazing. Oh hey, I really scared a person to death, haha, I'm not a person. The sable-cap girl laughed suddenly, showing a somewhat flattering look for the first time, lowered her head and rubbed her hands and whispered, how can we be the same, our good sisters? There is nothing we can't negotiate. Do you want money? Let's talk open. Price, how much snow cost? The white-haired boy stretched out his hand and patted his heart, pretending to be horrified, and his words were accurate. I don't know who just wanted to kill someone with their eyes. The corners of Xiago's mouth twitched and he laughed and said, there are a lot of adults. The Prime Minister can punt a boat in his stomach, and I am a cardamom girl who cares about something. The white-haired boy wants to say something. Xiago turned his head to look at him deliberately and said to himself, the 3 of them have gone a little far. The white-haired boy immediately smiled more flatteringly, his face turned into a flower, and he took out a cut-out sketch from his sleeve. The fine brushwork and freehand brushwork blended together, and the sketches were exquisite and old-fashioned. There are only Xiago and Xiao Emo standing side by side, but I don't know when there is a new signature on the painting. After the white-haired boy handed over the painting, he raised his head and said sincerely, Sister Xia, for the mounting, do you need it? Do it for you. Xiago held the scroll and slapped the white-haired boy on the shoulder with one hand and said brightly, Kong Ho, I owe you a favor and I will help you cut people in the future. On the way down the mountain, Qin Pingon asked, Senior Lu, the number of strange people in the Qingming world is relatively vast. How many or few? Lu Yen smiled and said, a strange person? How to define it? So it's hard to say. But if you just talk about the realm, the number of monks on the top of the 2 mountains in the world is not much different for the time being. It's only temporary. As for changing the sky, a game after the rain falls, the next 100 years will be very chaotic. Some Ascension realms have a great chance to be included in the 14 realms. There are also old and new 14 realms monks who let go of their hands and feet to kill the Ascension realm. As for taking advantage of the time, before the game is decided, seize the opportunity. The old grievances between the Ascension realms will end, or the new feud between you and me will be revived. I believe there will only be more. Originally, the wild world that respects pure freedom the most, because there is one more by Zay, it may be the most stable world. I heard that in the Western Buddhist countries, there are Zen masters who advocate the line of thought, and Buddhist monks who keep strict precepts. The lawyer faction is about to evolve into a situation where the situation is the same. In addition, Tantric Buddhism and Zen Buddhism, as well as Zen Buddhism, have great disagreements about the legal system of a famous monk in history, so that they each compile ancestral genealogy, and they all want to put it together. It is allocated to the genealogy of its own legal lineage, because it directly involves the position of the 2 prominent Buddhist schools. It is not a trivial matter which side should sit on. There are Buddhist dragon elephants who try their best to blur their boundaries, but the differences are still not small. A few years ago, a monk only dared to take the opinion that the world has been suffering for a long time. From the opinion in the heart to a statement, and it began to gradually circulate among the 14 state officials. Bai Yujing did not seem to deliberately suppress this kind of discussion. There is already a momentum of wildfire. The teacher who sits in Bai Yujing is Yu Do himself. Don't worry, no matter what, there are only a handful of people like Pin Dao 3,000 years ago and 3,000 years later. Approaching the foot of the mountain, Lu Yen said, Qin Shanju doesn't need to continue sending. Qin Pingon stopped. Lu Yen smiled and said, flowing water for thousands of years, It turns with the mountains, entering the temple to burn incense and leaving the mountain gate you need to practice separately. Qin Pingon nodded and said, 100 years of people down the mountain have 10,000 years of heart, and monks on the mountain often live 100 years and 1,000 years. The so-called practice is only this one. Lu Yen asked, didn't receive an invitation? Qin Pingon said helplessly, even if I am invited I don't dare to go, and I will not agree to anyone who persuades me. Lu Yen said, this is because you haven't really convinced yourself, so it's not good to say too much. There was a metaphor for the white bone master, which is like fighting in groups and raising Gus. Qin Pingon thought for a moment. It's a good metaphor. Lu Yen bowed his head and said, see you next time. There will be Lord Laochen to help protect the Tao. Qin Pingon returned the salute. I must do my best to live up to the expectations of my predecessors. Lu Yen pointed to the top of the mountain with a whisk. Fellow Taoist Kong Ho Fengkai once spoke from his heart and invited Pin Dao to be the deputy mountain owner of your Luopa mountain, and kept saying that it was her own intention, and it had absolutely nothing to do with the mountain owner. It's not like they're in the same line, don't care if there are dates or not, let's try 3 polls first. Qin Pingon smiled awkwardly, so he had to hand over again. How offended, I apologize for Kong Ho and Senior. Lu Yen waved his hand. Just get used to it. Qin Pingon asked with his heart. Dare to ask the senior Lin Xianxia of the Qingming world, how is his boxing? Lu Yen smiled and said, this Master Lin has extremely high boxing skills and superior swordsmanship. Qin Pingon didn't ask any more questions. Lu Yen said, send a fire talisman, and the opportunity between Pin Dao and Qin Wanshu has come to an end. Fortunately, it is a good start and a good end. As for the fate of the future, I will just go with the fate. Qin Pingon nodded. Lu Yen took back the whisk, looked around and said, a mountain needs 100 flowers to bloom, don't be silent, and it turns out that everyone learns who is not. 10 steps of vanilla is better than a tree that towers into the sky. Xiaomo said, Taoist Chunyang, I don't dare to say anything else. This truth is said by Taoist priests for nothing. My son has done the best in this matter. Lu Yen nodded with a smile. Pin Dao is used to being in the market. Before leaving, if he doesn't shake a few words of immortal masters, he always feels that something is wrong. Please forgive me. Xiaomo smiled and said, then I will also invite Taoist Chunyang to come to Luopao Mountain to be the deputy mountain master. Sincerely, I will never be polite. Lu Yen tooted his tongue in admiration and said, you guys are really powerful and you can't stand the pure Yang Dao method of Pin Dao. Qin Pingon said with guilt. I'm the one who has been the hand-sucking shopkeeper for too many years. I'm not majestic enough. One by one I'm too quiet. According to an unwritten rule on the mountain, visiting the mountain and entering the mountain gate, leaving the mountain and exiting the mountain gate. After Lu Yen arrived at the foot of the mountain, he directly performed the contraction. Daifa, one step across the small half of Aquarius Island, came to the northernmost Xianxia ferry, raised his eyes to look at Beiju Luzhou in the north and performed the vision technique. It seemed that he Xiaoyang would not make a move for the time being, so Lu Yen shrank the mountains and rivers again and came to the sea in an instant, took a closer look, waved the dust and split the sea at will, setting off a huge wave of hundreds of feet, and the Taoist figure flashed. After passing away, he went to the ruins of a submarine dragon palace that had not yet been found by the true dragon King Zhu. The numerous restrictions were in vain, and the Taoist Chunyang walked in the courtyard as if he were no one. On the way up the mountain, Xiaomo reminded in his heart, Master Xiego has a temperamental temperament. If she stays in Luopao Mountain, she may stab her at any time and place. Why don't I find a way? For pure sword cultivators, especially the wild monster clan, the way of looking at the world outside themselves is actually very simple. It is to carefully consider the combat power, and facing different cultivators, they need to hand out a few swords. In Bai Jing's eyes, even if she is a reclusive master who can't see the depth of Taoism, she is not at all embarrassed. If it was in the wild world, Bai Jing would have even taken the initiative to challenge the sword. Since you can't see the depth of Taoism, then type an answer. Qin Pingon joked. How? What is the method? Do you agree with your body? Xiaomo, are you a dead man like you and you still need to sell your color? Xiaomo hesitated. Qin Pingon said, I know what you think. Follow her a rule similar to the 3rd chapter of the contract, and tell her that if she acts beyond the bounds, you will sacrifice the flying sword of life. Of course you are serious and Bai Jing will believe you. Serious, but I don't think it's necessary. It's okay, don't worry about it all the time. Since I promised to let her go back to the mountain, you can relax and just practice the sword well. Motherfucker, this Bai Jing, previously saying that your aptitude is not as good as hers, will make me mad a lot, and I guess you have heard it, so Xiaomo, you must practice hard. Xiaomo said helplessly, I have never slacked off my cultivation for a while following the young master. Otherwise, it is impossible to find a way to enter the 14 realms. It is just a step too late. Qin Pingon smiled and said, the Taoist ancestor visited the town before and asked me about my views on cultivating Taoism. I once replied with a poem by Su Zi, Danzhou Yunxia and Qianjiang Chao. Danzhou Yunxia Qianjiang Tide. Xiao Emo smiled knowingly. Su Zi is known as the sect of Ci, but this poem is very zen. A scholar talked about this with Dao Zhu, the only person in the world. Qin Pingon learned from his husband's tone, sighed and complained, don't talk nonsense, it's you who think too much, I don't have such a competitive idea. Qin Pingon explained, the reason why I talk about this is to tell you that love between men and women is often the same way. I think about it and I can't ask for it. In fact, it's just the Danzhou Yunxia Qianjiang Tide in my heart. Hate 1,000 kinds of grievances, how can one word of sorrow be so good? But when it really succeeds, Danzhou Yunxia Qianjiang Chao is still Danzhou Yunxia Qianjiang Chao. But the heart has changed, the wind is moving, the flag is moving, and the heart is just moving. I'm not worried about what Xiego will do now, I'm just worried that one day you will really like her and then the situation will be reversed. You said it yourself, Bai Jing's temperament is uncertain, and his love from strong to shallow, then it will be your turn. You've started to pay off your debts and you have to suffer. I don't want to see you drinking alcohol every day to drown your sorrows, sloppy like an alcoholic. As for why I am more tolerant towards Xiego, I naturally feel that she can still love someone even after 10,000 years. After 10,000 years, in order to be able to meet again, I took the initiative to cross 2 worlds to find this person. An amazing thing. Xiaomo was silent. Qin Pingon said, Xiaomo, take 10,000 steps back and say that even if you still don't like her, you should know what to do. Don't just get bored, at least be a little patient with your usual words. Xiaomo nodded and suddenly said, young master's reasoning does sound reasonable, but it seems that it is not convincing for you. Young master and Ning girl, from the time you meet and know each other to the time when you miss each other and love each other. No change of heart. Qin Pingon moved very fast and blinked. Xiaomo was puzzled. Qin Pingon didn't explain anything, just patted Xiaomo's shoulder, wrapped his sleeves with his hands again and slowly climbed the mountain. Xiaomo, it's not without reason that you and Xiego can make a pair. They have high realm and few ideas. In short, they are simple and easy to deceive. This is called the same thing is not the same. As far as Bai Jing's stubborn temper is concerned, you mustn't be angry with me. One day you will change your mind and like her and you will like your little Mo even more? The sable-cap girl and the white-haired boy who had just become friends, squatted on the white jade railing at the edge of the square, stretched their necks together and listened. The white-haired boy asked curiously, Sister Xia, what did the ancestor of the hidden officer talk about with your man? Xiego rubbed his sable hat. The heartfelt words between the two big men are mostly scolding me, so I'm sincere but am moved by listening to them. The white-haired boy was very curious. What are we talking about? Let's talk about it. Xiego suddenly said, I don't stand or sit, I just squat. My posture is indecent and it looks like I'm squatting in a dung pit. The white-haired boy laughed. Xiego had a whim. Kongho, let's form a small gang, for example. Let's pull the left guardian law into the gang first. Isn't the official title given casually? The white-haired boy frowned. Xiefengguan, there is no gold content, it seems difficult to convince the public. And there are only so many people in Luapa Mountain, it is difficult to deceive people into the pit. Alas, if I knew I had promised the ancestor of the hidden official, go to Tong Yezhou to fool a few new faces who don't know the details. Xiego nodded. Then don't worry, to build a great success and become a great businessman, you must have a long-term plan, make a long-term plan and make an appointment later, let's discuss it carefully. The white-haired boy said, we study so much and you have a lot of money. I learned to be rich in 5 cars, but don't be a scholar and rebel for 10 years. Xiego rubbed his chin, looking a little frowning, and then he stretched his brows and punched his fists. This is called a general, a boy who learns from leisure, and a gentleman is easy to live. The white-haired boy nodded vigorously. This is a bit learned. Zhou Mili's gang is incomparable with the small hilltop that only has the two of us for now. It's far from it. Why are you so close to Qin Pingon? No matter what it is very hard to pretend that it is not. For example, Qin Pingon, he is a man who once only heard a certain story of Lu Laoqing Gonglu Island, and his face is full of tears. The infatuation kind who broke his heart, so he actually sympathized with me in his heart, but he never sympathized with me at all, which made me very grateful. Yeah, I don't know how to worry about this body, I'm most afraid if I see gentleness. The white-haired boy rolled his eyes. If Zhou Lian hadn't said this, I would have eaten shit. If Zhou Lian is willing to show the truth and hold a few more spectacles, I can be sure that within a year, there will be at least 100 female cultivators willing to change their families and come to Luopao Mountain to practice. Xiago agreed and nodded. If you only talk about appearance, my family's Xiao Mo and Mr. Zhu are probably 100 different Qin Pingon. The white-haired boy turned his face and said, Miss Xia, friends are friends, I won't allow you to belittle the hidden official ancestor like this. Then it's only 10? It's almost there. A flying sort of life quietly left. Xiago grinned, thinking that Feijian turned into a void, and was hidden in the Taoist meaning of that stinky cow-nosed old Taoist left in the mountains, like a fish in a deep abyss. Xiago took out a pot of wine, which was a market-placed shochu sold by the caddy in the town. After taking a sip of wine, he was silent for a long time and suddenly asked, worry-free and unfettered and become neither ghost nor immortal, will you hold any resentment? The white-haired boy snorted and said indifferently, the grass and trees in the mountains and the crops in the fields each have their own lives, what they want and what they can do. Xiago drank wine. If you are not free, will you be free too? The white-haired boy was silent for a long time, then suddenly raised his fists, raised his arms and shouted, I want to understand, victory or defeat is here. Xiago said, don't be so rude. The white-haired boy lowered his voice and said, Sister Xia, if you want the latecomers to come out on top, the limelight will surpass the lineage of President Pei and the short winter melon, and there is a crucial winner. Xiago asked, Mr. Zhu? The white-haired boy shook his head and grinned, Guizhujiu. There Xiaomo found that the young master took out the sword-raising gourd again, took a sip of wine and looked gloomy. Qin Pingon said, Xiaomo, you said that in the future, for example in 100 years, 200 years or even longer, Luopao Mountain will also have a scale of hundreds or even thousands of people. If we look back at today, will we feel somewhat unfamiliar? Xiaomo smiled and said, probably yes, probably not. Qin Pingon laughed angrily, idlers don't have back pain when they stand and talk. After that, Xiaomo went back to the house to practice his sword, and Qin Pingon went to the bamboo building, and continued to struggle with how to write the preface of a certain boxing manual. With the shaking mountain fist manual in front of Zhu, Qin Pingon had been having a headache all the time. He sat at the desk for a long time in a daze and simply went to read. Silent night. Qin Pingon opened the door, stepped on the green bricks laid on the ground with Cui Dongshan, and walked back and forth in 6 steps. Going back to the house again, taking off his cloth shoes, he didn't want to do anything, so he fell asleep. How could Qin Pingon be selfish? He is so serious about Chao Yin and Chao Yang's teaching boxing. Zhou Xian is a direct disciple who has entered the ancestral hall. Naturally, he will only be more attentive. So Qin Pingon asked Zhou Xian to move from Qilong Lane to Luopao Mountain. In the end, the place where the boxing will be taught will be placed on the 2nd floor of the bamboo building. Ever since he drank the apprentice tea and officially accepted Zhou Xian as his heir, Qin Pingon has been thinking seriously about how to teach boxing. Wanting to make up a boxing score by yourself is just one part of it. What kind of boxing is taught? It is to continue to teach Xianxia boxing as well as some school dragons, who learned to grow Qiazujia, or Zhu Lian's boxing pole, Huang Ting's white ape-back swordsmanship, which evolved from the 6 paintings of Yunkatang in Pushan. The new frame of Xianrentu, coupled with the boxing manual donated by Kong Ho, helps Zhou Xian to walk from low to high, gather the strengths of hundreds of schools and integrate well. Lu Jing continued to work on his physique. Or should he directly teach Zhou Xian the gods and drums, Qin Pingon's own boxing, swordsmanship, etc.? What's more, how to teach specifically, Qin Pingon is a pressure, how much pressure? Or don't press the boundary, just like feeding the knife sharpener Lu Zong on the ferry boat with the deer title? Is it to choose the tops of vassal mountains such as Huanghu Mountain and Huimeng Mountain, and learn from the Yunzhan mountain of Qingping sword sect, starting with Zhou Xian, which is specially used to cultivate pure martial arts, and then form a rule for martial arts to learn boxing? Or choose to be on the second floor of the bamboo building? If the location is finally chosen at Bamboo Tower, is it to inherit some unwritten tradition and teach boxing in the way of the predecessor Cui Cheng, or Qin Pingon to try it according to his own method? If both are compatible, then the proportion of each is the most suitable for Zhou Xian. These are all very real issues before Qin Pingon. As a master, he must know what he needs to know first. Officially teaching boxing to his disciples, Qin Pingon has been reconsidering these days, overturning one idea after another. But just by taking this opportunity, Qin Pingon also made a review of his martial arts career. This morning the genius was shining brightly. Qin Pingon was sitting alone at the stone table by the cliff. Not long after, Nuanshu came here with the millet grains. Wooden hangers? Qin Pingon was entertained, stood up and asked with a smile, "What are you doing?" Zhou Mili laughed and said, "Sister Nuanshu said this time when I go home, the good man will stay in the mountains for a long time. As soon as we got together last night, we decided to take care of it." Qin Pingon joked, "Is such a hanger brought here? It looks like the craftsmanship of an old cook. Wouldn't you be the one who urged him to rush to work overnight?" Millet quickly pursed her lips. Nuanshu nodded and smiled. "I asked Mr. Zhu to help." Millet Grains immediately said, Together. In fact, it was her bad idea last night. Sister Nuanshu wanted to talk about it in the morning, but she couldn't stand her scolding, so she went to knock on the door in the middle of the night. "Alas, I am still not strong enough. No wonder Pei Qian is the chief helmsman." Nuanshu explained, "Mr. Zhu said that the current status of the master requires frequent hospitality. It's not that we need to watch people serve dishes, or there are some half-baked fairy masters who can climb mountains. I sincerely admire the master, and the master clearly looks like this. Handsome, first-class immortal demeanor, always wearing a green shirt and long coat, which is inevitably boring, and occasionally changing into different clothes and robes, not to mention how surprised outsiders are. It can also make us seductive and refreshing. Xiaomi and I both feel that Mr. Zhu is right." Millet nodded vigorously. Yes, the old cook can express our heart in a few words." Nuanshu's eyes shone brightly. After setting up the hanger, Zhou Mili squatted on the ground and looked left and right, saying that it was not bad at all. The girl in the pink skirt hurriedly opened the 2 packages and took out a whole set of clothes. Obviously, she had already made a draft and took the initiative to ask the master for the blue gauze robe. Qin Pingon originally wanted to say that it can be pulled down. Seeing that Nuanshu and Xiaomi have such an attitude, he had no choice but to hold his nose and not express his opinion. He silently took out the blue gauze robe from the object close by and handed it to Nuanshu. Nuanshu was busy, carefully selecting the neatly folded clothes from the package held by the millet grains in both hands, while smiling and saying that they must be well matched. Last night Mr. Zhu said, "Wait, the old man dressed like this." When he turned back, Zhu Lian personally made a gold crown that was not tacky. At that time, the master didn't care whether he was holding a white jade Ganoderma lucidum or a whisk, and then put on the slippery cloud shoes woven by Xiaoma. Omi Jianxian saw it. "You have to be ashamed of yourself, just hate that you are not a daughter." Qin Pingon was silent. If the old cook came here to watch the fun, he could go directly to the second floor to learn from each other. In addition to the hangers, Nuanshu and Millet also brought some spare items that were very attentive. For example, I went to the bamboo building to hang a string of bells under the eaves, and brought a celadone vase with a freshly broken plum blossom inserted. Qin Pingon joked, "It is easy to change from frugality to luxury, but it is difficult to change from luxury to frugality." Nuanshu smiled and said, "Master, you don't need to worry about this. The millet grains are next to the chickens pecking at the rice." Qin Pingon laughed dumbly and sat in the bamboo corridor outside the door. He had nothing to do, so he asked Xiaoli to help bring the small bamboo basket, which was full of invitations of various colors. Most of them came from Aquarius continent and Beiju Lu continent. For example, the Emperor of Shihao Kingdom went to himself to reminisce. There are also several letters from outside the 2 continents, which are quite unexpected, including an invitation from an overseas female ship owner from Friazhou. On Cui Dongshan's side, the expansion rate will be very fast because it is completely different from Luopeishan's style. Cui Dongshan admits that Qingping Sword Sect will open its doors and accept disciples, and several dynasties including Daquan Yao's have begun to connect. Now, within their respective countries, as long as there are sword cultivators, there are several counts. If you give people and then pay, I will help you cultivate them in Xindu Mountain. Not long ago, a secret letter was sent from Chaofeng of Yunzhan Mountain, saying that the Deyuan dynasty, which had been divided into 3 parts, was about to be reunited, and Yuan Li and Yuan Mi, who had established themselves as emperors, were willing to surrender themselves as vassal kings. Respect Yuan Ying as the emperor. Besides Wang Manmeng and Chen Hoer, they both admire you so much, sir, that they can't drive them away, so they have to cry and shout to join our Qingping Sword Sect. As for that martial artist Hong Cho is not bad. Now the small bet on I Ching failed to make money, so he simply gambled on the big one and joined the Emperor Yuan Ying. The hero gambled his life to report the emperor. It's just in this letter that our sect master Cui started beating around the bush to ask how Zhao Wan's practice was going. Qin Pingon looked at the invitation letters. The grains of millet lie in the corridor, holding their cheeks in their hands, carefully counting the passages outside the cliff. The white clouds on the road, today's fog and heavy clouds are fat, and there is a big lump. It is the sea of clouds. Wanshu tugged at the sleeves of the millet grains, and the millet grains immediately understood, rolled, and then a carp kicked up, jumped up and stood still. Good mountain master, I have to go on a mountain tour. Qin Pingon smiled and nodded. Go ahead. Putting all the letters and invitations back into the small basket, Qin Pingon stood up, walked to the cliff again, saw the sun rise and the sea of clouds, stood up, came to Zhou Xiaxia's house on the mountain, knocked on the door and was practicing walking. Zhou Xiaxia still called Mr. Qin habitually, but Qin Pingon didn't care. Hearing that he was going to take himself to the 2nd floor of the bamboo building, Zhou Xiaxia looked complicated, nodded his head and followed silently. Now Zhou Xiaxia's martial arts realm is the bottleneck of the 4 realms, and it is also a 4-realm martial artist. Because Qin Pingon sent a copy of swordsmanship, so Zhou Xiaxia will also study swordsmanship in addition to practicing boxing over the years. Qin Pingon said, Cui Dongshan wants to accept Zhao Wan as a direct disciple. What do you think? Zhao Wan's aptitude for Taoism, Cui Dongshan, has been coveted for a long time, and really wants to accept her as his heir. Cui Dongshan spoke highly of her, saying that even if it can't compare to a well-deserved, natural talent like Chai Wu, my family's Luan Wan can be regarded as a veritable earth material. Any sect in Howren world is a sweet pastry worthy of careful cultivation. Qin Pingon still planned to ask Zhao Wan what she meant first. If she chose to stay with Luapa Mountain, of course she would not delay her cultivation, but the cultivation path given by Cui Dongshan would indeed make her go faster. And it's not the kind of shortcut that encourages growth, so there will be no hidden dangers. To tell the truth, it's okay to teach boxing and to instruct others to practice. Qin Pingon really lacks confidence. In order to convince her husband to agree to this matter, Cui Dongshan swore and assured that everything was ready for Zhao Wan to form a golden pill, and she just waited for Zhao Wan to arrive at Wu Chaofeng in Yunzhan Mountain. In retreat, he, the master, came to protect the retreat in person. At the same time, Cui Dongshan also hinted that his husband, the next peak master position of Wu Chaofeng, naturally would not let the fat and water flow to outsiders. Going further, it is also possible to think about it when he was promoted and transferred to the mountain owner of Jimyo Mountain. Qingping Sword Sect 3 mountains. Xindu Mountain is the dojo for sword cultivators, and Yunzhan Mountain is run by pure warriors. This is the ancestral example of the sect established by Cui Dongshan himself. It was arranged at Mount Qimiao, the main peak. Jingxingfeng, the first peak owner Chao Qingqing as Cui Dongshan's junior and junior, just because he was the next suzerain, so it really doesn't make much sense whether Chao Qingming is the mountain owner of Qimiao Mountain, might as well make room for someone else. Cui Dongshan patted his chest and promised that in the future, if Zhao Wan formed a pill, if there was no second-grade weather, the gentleman would just come to Qingping Jianzong Xingshi to ask his guilt, and take me as a question. Qin Pingon doesn't even bother to talk nonsense with him. He is your direct disciple. Even if Zhao Wan doesn't have a second-grade pill, what else can I say? To say shameless, it is Cui Dongshan who is more talented as a student. The dog lifts the curtain with his mouth. Zhou Xiaxia said, I guess Luan Wan might not be willing to go to Qingping Sword Sect to practice, but she always listened to Mr. Chen. If Mr. Chen suggested her to go there, I think Luan Wan would agree. Sect Master Cui is highly regarded and becomes a direct disciple, and I am also happy for her. Zhao Wan is now a Qi practitioner in the Dragon Gate realm, and his cultivation is smooth with almost no barriers. 4 realm warriors and the current bottleneck is difficult to break. Qin Pingon said, "Time flies so fast under the tree after the new year. You are 36 years old this year, right? I remember that the first time we met was in the city of Rouge County, Sai Country. Zhao Xian was still a thin boy with a hatchet." Zhao Xian grinned and said, "Mr. Qin remembers correctly, it's 30 out of 6. Qin Pingon smiled and joked, "I'm not too young and I've traveled all over the world, but I haven't met the girl I like? Is it something you like but you despise you, and if you like you, you don't despise it? Don't you just drag it?" Zhao Xian said with a face, "I never thought about it." Qin Pingon laughed at himself. Don't mention this, after all, the matter of urging marriage is disliked by dogs. If you can't be a master for a few days, you can put on the air of the most unpleasant elder." As the direct disciple of Qin Pingon, there are currently 5 people: Cui Dongshan, Pei Qian, Chao Qingqing, Zhao Xiao and Guizhujiu. Cui Dongshan is already the master of the next sect, and Pei Qian is even more famous as a martial artist of the world. Chao Qingqing is a first-class reading seed, the second-ranked person in the imperial examination of Dali, and now she is also a golden elixir, and has just become the leader of Jingxingfeng's first peak. Guizhujiu came from the Great Wall of Sword Qi Jindan Jianxiu, and he was born in the Summer Palace lineage. He was a leader among the younger generation of Jianxiu in his hometown. It seems that only Zhao Xian is the only one who has no name. Not only does he have no deeds worth talking about now, but in the future the gap between him and those fellow students will only get bigger and bigger. Zhao Xian also imagined his own future, maybe in another 20 or 30 years. He is at most a martial artist with a golden body, maybe not at all, and his realm is only stagnant in the 6th realm for a long time. Therefore, before Luopeishan became a sect, Mr. Qin suddenly accepted him as a direct descendant and entered the genealogy of Jiaisfeng Patriarch Hall. The most surprising thing was none other than Zhao Xian himself. Since Mr. Qin often travels far and wide, Mr. Zhu has put a lot of effort into learning boxing. It's just that every breakthrough under Zhao Xu is far away from the strongest word that can earn martial arts. In Zhao Shuxia's house, there is a plaque in the study which was handwritten by Qin Pingon. "Real fast." Probably this is Qin Pingan's greatest expectation for Zhao Xian. Qin Pingon led Zhao Xian one after the other, up the stairs of the bamboo building. Qin Pingon walked slowly and said slowly, "Under the tree, in my opinion, a person has 2 extremely valuable talents. The one that is visible is talent, and the one that is invisible is hard work. Zhao Wan is the former, you belonging to the latter. Of course, it does not mean that Zhao Wan does not practice hard, nor does it mean that you have no talent at all. If you can become a martial artist of the 4 realms, it is already considered as entering the room and the fist is in your body. It is the dream of many martial arts practitioners. Maybe outside the mountains, if you are just a person in the rivers and lakes, you can't be arrogant and have eyes higher than the top, but Luopao Mountain is special. I have to make you not belittle yourself and be too self-denial. Pei Qian is Pei Qian, Zhao Xu is Zhao Xu. Next, practice boxing first for oneself, and after asking others about the boxing score, the order here can't be wrong." Speaking of this, Qin Pingon joked, "Master is too good and sister is too strong. Sometimes it is also a burden." Zhao Xian hummed. Truly an honest man. When he came to the corridor on the 2nd floor of the bamboo building, Qin Pingon did not rush to open the door. It's just that when we work hard for something, it can be seen for a long time, but it is easy to be ignored because neither the hardworking nor the bystanders think it is a talent. I've always felt that if you don't grit your teeth and really work hard, you're not qualified to talk about talent. Look for a path and then you can get in there without distraction. In the right direction, persevere, keep your feet on the ground and suddenly look up. You can't see your back at this moment. The people walking in front of you are geniuses. Losing to them is a fate. If you complain again, you can blame the gods and not blame yourself. Eat well, clothe yourself, sleep peacefully with a clear conscience. Knowing the gap between yourself and those geniuses is the reward after hard work. Don't feel useless. This will be very useful for your future martial arts in life. Because on the road of martial arts, Chao Xi and I are roughly like this. Zhao Xian hesitated for a while but decided to tell the truth. Master, not everyone can chase after Chao Xi and see Chao Sis back all the time. Qin Pingon nodded with a smile, very pleased, very good. First the student Chao Qingqing and then the apprentice Zhou Xian, who would dare to say that the atmosphere of my Luopa mountain is not right. Qin Pingon said, under the tree, have you ever thought that there might be someone like Chao Ci on our life path? Zhou Xian nodded and said solemnly, understood. Qin Pingon asked, under the tree, what do you think is Pei Qian's greatest advantage as a senior sister? Or what do you want to learn from her the most? Zhou Xian said without hesitation, senior sister can endure the hardships and has her own ideas. In these 2 points, senior sister is very similar to master. For example, Pei Qian learned boxing here for a period of time and she used to jump off the cliff every day. Ask boxing earth. This kind of thing, Zhou Xian admits that even if he practices boxing for another 100 years he can't think of it. Therefore, Zhou Xian never felt that senior sister Pei could have today's martial arts achievements just because of her talent in boxing. Qin Pingon stood in the corridor, leaning against the railing, looking into the distance and said with a smile, I'll tell you something from my heart that I've never said to outsiders. Actually, I've always had a wish. Zhou Xian looked serious and waited for the next paragraph. Qin Pingon suddenly changed his mind and said with a smile, I'll say this later, I have to say it behind closed doors. A mighty world, the Deduan dynasty in the Middle Earth, the female martial god Pei Cup, his disciples are Chao Ci, and 3 direct descendants including Ma Zuanxian. In the world of Qingming Lin Xianxian, who is respected as Master Lin, besides being the first person in martial arts in the world, he heard that he is also very skilled in teaching boxing. On Luopao Mountain, Qin Pingon and Pei Qian also have both master and apprenticeships. But Luopao Mountain still has Zhou Lian. There is Xing Dafeng who is now in the colorful world. There is still kind of autumn Wei Xian Lu Baixiang. The younger generation also includes Xin Yuanji, Yuan Bao, Yuan Lai and Zhou Junqian. As for the wild world, because the big monks are too arrogant, pure warriors have never been in a good mood. Even if they are able to reach the limit, they will either become vassals or be killed by monks. There are almost no masters who can be called true in the wild world. Stand on your own, stand tall. Therefore, several worlds have quietly formed the prototype of the fist divided into 3 veins pattern. Zhou Xian was still upright in the end and subconsciously changed his name and said, Mr. Qin, regarding the future achievements of martial arts, Mr. Zhu told me some predictions in the early years. He said that in my life, if I hadn't met Mr. Qin, I would be extremely. It is possible that there is a 3-level difference with senior sister Pei, and I think this should be the truth. It turns out that Zhou Lian did have a heart-to-heart relationship with Zhou Xian. If you have never met a mountain master, you may have been practicing martial arts all your life and then working hard, luckily, and you were not beaten to death on the rivers and lakes. To become the top expert of a small country and to call the wind and call the rain in a river and lake the size of a pond is the best result. When you enter Luopao Mountain to learn boxing, it is tantamount to opening the sky and the earth. If one day you are fortunate enough to become the direct disciple of our mountain master, then you will have the hope of becoming one of the 9 realms in this life. Look up at the sky. Qin Pingon smiled and said, the old cook is a far-flung person. He knows a lot and can't judge people. A rickety old man with his hands behind his back was walking on the path and was about to turn into the bamboo building. He coughed a few times, but he had to turn back the same way, not going to make fun of himself. Zhou Xian heard the coughing sound and was immediately embarrassed. He had great respect for Zhou Lian. Qin Pingon continued, on the Zhulu side, first help you lay a solid foundation, and then I will go to Yunzhou side in a place called Yenzhou Fusuian County to be a school teacher. You will follow him when the time comes. I will go there together and I will settle down there and I will guide you in your practice at any time. As the Taiku River in the upper reaches of Baihu River, the shrine is called Jixiang Temple, similar to the family temple of Xiang Mansion. Hundreds of miles of water in the Taikuan River have now been allocated to the Baihu River Water House, the Dali Imperial Court Rights, the Piyun Mountain Beiyue Mountain Monarch House, and the Huang Tingua Imperial Court, all of which have been recorded separately. Because of the merger of Taikuan River, the water goddess of Baihu River in Kana, Shaolan was able to take advantage of the situation to upgrade to the level of god, which is already equal to the rank of the water of Hanxi River. And Gaojiu, who was transferred from the Taiku River, was also promoted to 1 rank, because there was a big river in Yunzhou, which allowed Gaojiu to build a temple and reshape the golden statues. The key is Wuxia as the source. hides the ruins of the ancient Shulong Palace that was just discovered by the Dali court not long ago. The creek is similar to the Longshu River, and there is a stone arch bridge with a similar regulation named Wanyin Bridge. Of course, no ancient swords were hung. It is said that in Suian County, when there is no rain for a long time, there is a custom of the old man going up the mountain and shouting for the rain. Qin Pingon took out the key to open the bamboo door on the second floor, turned and sat on the ground taking off his cloth shoes. Zhou Xian sat aside and did the same. Qin Pingon, who was sitting barefoot at the door, slowly rolled up his sleeves and said, Senior Cui, who was the first to teach boxing here, was the pinnacle of the first floor, and he even stepped into the 11th realm with one foot. Your senior sister, I don't dare to say when you will become a god, but I believe it won't be too long to become a god. As for myself, it's not easy to want to be a god, but it's not an extravagant hope. Qin Pingon raised his hand and stretched out 4 fingers. The old saying always says that there are only 3 things, not only that some things should not happen 4 times in a row, but also that things can happen again and again and it is difficult to get for. I don't have high expectations, it must be a lie, you can foolishly believe it, but I can't say it myself. I certainly hope that Zhou Xian, who can learn boxing here, will one day be able to follow Cui Qing, Qin Pingon and Pei Qian. The 4th stop warrior, so the bamboo tower warriors are all stop. Qin Pingon turned to look at Zhou Xian and smiled. So the only problem now is you. Zhao Shu straightened his back, his body tense, but his mind was already blank. Qin Pingon asked with a smile, Don't say you've done it, don't you dare to think about it? Zhao Xiao nodded with a face. Zhao Xiao, you have to dare to think. Qin Pingon said, This is the first punch you will learn from Qin Pingon from today, before you officially enter the house. Qin Pingon stood up and said, Things that you can't even think about can't be achieved. In this world you should say I can't to yourself. Taoism emphasizes meditation, sitting and forgetting. Xianxia is alone all the time. Buddhists say that when you sit in meditation facing the wall, you have to sit on the futon and break the wall. Even if the way forward is blocked, you will clear the way with fists. Zhao Xian, you are different from me, you are just a pure martial artist, and I am Wufu, is also a cultivator on the mountain. Wufu's lifespan is limited after all. I hope that you will be old and can't deliver a punch. Even if you haven't reached the end, you must have a clear conscience. Come on, ask yourself, dare to say I am Zhao Xian. In this life I have practiced martial arts and boxing, and I have never been worthy of the word pure. Come in. Qin Pingon turned around and strode into the house and said solemnly, Close the door again. Zhao Xian followed Qin Pingon into the house, then turned around and closed the bamboo door. If it wasn't for the reminder from Zhou Xian and Zhou Mili yesterday, perhaps Zhao Xian would not have realized the true meaning of the word closed door when Master said it at this moment. From this moment on, Zhao Xian, the skinny boy with a hatchet in the past, is the close disciple of Master Qin Pingon on the road of martial arts. Qin Pingon stood in a position in the house. Zhao Xian stood opposite Qin Pingon, which was almost where Qin Pingon and Pei Qian stood. Qin Pingon smiled and said, Close the door and I can say that. I want to make the world, not just the vast world, the world's warriors see this bamboo tower as if they saw the Patriarch's Hall. Sword of Coming Chapter 987. Practicing martial arts and cultivating Taoism. In fact, the boundaries between the two are not as clear as we imagined. I even have a guess that can't be verified for the time being. Every cultivator on the mountain is a natural warrior with a golden body. To learn boxing you must first understand yourself. Zhao Xian, let's start with the simplest breathing. It's like looking down at the mountains and rivers from a cactus. Qin Pingon did not teach Zhao Xian the boxing tricks, nor did he rush to feed Zhao Xian, but left 7 maps of human acupuncture points in the bamboo building, corresponding to Qin Ping's own martial arts from 3 to 9. The different scenes of the human body and the small world, the flesh and bones are deliberately erased from the portrait, and only the acupuncture points and meridians are left, which are at the same height as people. As for the acupuncture and moxibustion wooden figurines in the market pharmacy, it is naturally even more incomparable. The 7 pictures with different acupoints are dotted with light and flickering, and the colors are different, reflecting the whole bamboo house. The bright star map entice you. With every breath of Qin Pingon, in the 7 portraits, the 7 stars in the heaven and earth like the Milky Way upside down, the white rainbow in the sky, the stars pulling and rotating each other, and many other visions grow. Each portrait is like a colorful astrological formation. The lower the realm of Qin Pingon, the faster the breathing and the shorter the interval, so the changes in the star map are greater, as if the whole world is expanding and shrinking following a person's every breath. The cycle seems to be endless. The higher the realm, the more stable the star map world, but once you take a closer look, you will find that it is actually the opposite. After Qin Pingon put his hands together, he slowly said, "These body acupuncture points are clearly recorded in the medical books of the world and the Taoist books of various schools, and are regarded as the key Qi palaces. Apart from those with different names and the same acupuncture points, I will collect and summarize them. After so many years, I think the error will not be too big. In fact, there are only about 700. If you add various secret traditions of various sects and find the secret realm by accident, I will pass the Summer Palace secret files in Confucian Temple. The Gongdalin records have added nearly 100 acupuncture points that seem to be forgotten in the ruins. Some of them are indeed recognized as tasteless Qi houses. After repeated verification, they were gradually abandoned by Qi practitioners, but many acupuncture points. Qi practitioners, I wanted to open a mansion, but the threshold was too high, so I was neglected and lost. In addition, someone once borrowed a 14-level Taoist method for me temporarily, and there were a lot more. In the 7th picture, there are a total of more than 150 acupuncture points. Therefore, a martial artist is pure infuriating, and the walking path is longer, so it can affect more people's natural energy, blending into fist intent, and punching naturally becomes heavier. Back then, in Mud Bottle Lane, Qin Pingon had just obtained the Shaking Mountain Fist Manual. Song Jisun and his maid Jigui left Lizhu Cave and lost a bunch of keys to him. In the end, Qin Pingon was in the kitchen next door. It was found that a split wooden figure was left, engraved with acupuncture points and meridians. For Qin Pingon, at the beginning of learning boxing, the boxing manual was a way to hang his life, so this was put together again by Qin Pingon. The wooden man is a hatchet, a mountain axe. In fact, at that time Qin Pingon knew that Jigui did it on purpose, because she knew very well that if it was a complete wooden figurine, Qin Pingon would definitely not pick it up and walk away, and maybe he wouldn't take a second look. With Qin Ping's fascination with money and thrift, he would definitely be willing to move back to his ancestral house next door, cooperate with a tattered boxing manual that he regarded as a standard, and study the knowledge carefully. This incident, the former servant girl Jigui of the Clay Bottle Alley, and the later Donghai Sea King Zhenlong Wangzhu, met Qin Pingon several times. She never mentioned a sentence or a sentence. She had long forgotten. But Qin Pingon always kept it in his heart. Qin Pingon asked, "How much do you remember?" Zhou Xian closed his eyes and opened them again and said, "I can roughly remember the locations of more than 700 acupuncture points." Qin Pingon nodded. Suddenly a probing arm lightning shot, palm lightly against Zhou Xia's neck, and with a casual shake, Zhou Xian slid out of a circle in the bamboo house, and waited until Zhou Xian just returned to the original position. I was horrified to find that on this circle, there were dozens of astrological maps of Zhou Xian. Qin Pingon glanced casually and looked at the copies of the human world and Qi machine under Zhou Xian. Qin Pingon nodded for no reason and said with a smile, "This is the right way to teach boxing, and I have more confidence. Teaching an apprentice like Zhou Xian will give you a sense of accomplishment." Qin Pingon put his fingers together, pointed at one of the constellations, and pointed at a very fast speed. In an instant, 300 or 400 acupoint names were marked, all of which were the paths that Zhao Shu's next mouth of Wufu Jinqi Fire Dragon Walks Water passed by. The mansion is like accurately drawing a map of the map, and then let Zhao Shu hold his breath and try to walk in 6 steps. After that, Qin Pingon copied another map, waved his sleeve, and the 2 star maps overlapped in unity. Qin Pingon said, "You can take a closer look at the difference between the two. First observe a stick of incense sticks and then take a 6-step walk. If there is no obvious improvement, I can let the old cook prepare the herbs and buckets." After a stick of incense, Zhao Shu lay on the ground and passed out. Qin Pingon shouted, "Zhou Lian, start work." The rickety old man immediately shouted loudly, "Come here, it's ready." Zhou Lian came to the 2nd floor of the bamboo building, looked at Zhao Xiu, who was neither covered in blood nor twitching, and sighed, "Young master is still a kind-hearted man." Qin Pingon carried Zhou Xian down the second floor, went to the house of the closed disciple and explained, "The heartstrings are always tense under the tree. Today is not suitable for teaching more boxing. Take your time. You say I should blame who? Who in the end let Zhou Xian know the meaning of the word, close the door, early. Zhou Lian immediately exposed himself. I must blame me for revealing the secret ahead of time. Qin Pingon was speechless for a while. Zhou Lian laughed softly. Young master, forget it today, tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. There is no time when you are not half dead when you really practice boxing. It stands to reason that if it was replaced by Cui Qing, Zhou Xian would not be able to die for 7 or 8 times, fainted and then woke up and then fainted and died. Zhou Xian would definitely not be able to get out of the bamboo house. However, in Zhou Lian's view, if Zhou Xian, as a close disciple of Qin Pingon, could really follow Cui Qing, who was 2 generations apart, to learn boxing, it would not necessarily be such a bleak situation. Qin Pingon nodded. For a while I really can't be ruthless, so I'm also adjusting my mentality. Zhou Lian sighed softly. When the young master learned boxing, only Nuan Shu and Qin Lingjun knew the specific situation, but after Pei Qian learned boxing, Zhou Lian watched it from the beginning to the end, not talking about the second floor. How much suffering has been suffered. I only said that Xiao Haiten often lowered her head to eat, and when she raised her head again, her eyes and ears were oozing blood. What to look at a ghost eat. It is estimated that if the young master saw these scenes with his own eyes, he would be heartbroken, not to mention distressed, and he would definitely go to Zhulu to fight with Cui Qing. Qin Pingon suddenly asked, "When are you going to ask me about boxing? Give me a time and place?" Zhou Lian rubbed his hands together and smiled. "If you don't take the initiative to ask, I won't be ashamed to mention it." Qin Pingon smiled and said, "Why are you being polite to me? I won't be polite to you when you ask about Quan." The implication is that Qin Pingon will never be overwhelmed. After all, Zhou Lian is a mountain top that is only 1 layer of window paper away from the end. Note 1. Zhou Lian thought for a while. Then choose this winter, choose a heavy snow season, and the location will be the capital of Nanyuan Kingdom in Lotus Root Blessed Land? Qin Pingon nodded and said, yes. Coincidentally, Luopeishan received a letter from Feijian, and the Fanhua Dragon boat and Fengyuan ferry would arrive at Nujiadu within a day, but it took about an hour. In addition to the millet grains, Qin Pingon also called Hongxia and Yunzi, and Cui Huahuan who rode on Longxiang. All of them will follow Fengyuan ferry to Beiju Luzhou, and they will cross the continent to Pimazong on the Beach of Bones first. Then along the southeast coastal route, stop at Chunlapu, and then go along Jidu to the ferry under the Yunshao Palace of the Zhou Xian department in the middle, and go south to Yunshangcheng. Although it is a long trip by ferry, it can be considered a visit. It's half the size of Beiju Luzhou, just like it doesn't matter at the moment. Yunzi and the girl Cui Huahuan are quite happy. As for the latter, there is more joy. Of course, there will be a reunion soon, seeing the long-lost man again. The eldest brother who reunited and recognized his relatives is now the head of the clan. She, who is a younger sister, wakes up laughing when she sleeps recently. There was still some time before the dragon boat ferry docked. Qin Pingon and his party went to visit their store. Millet and the female cultivators were very familiar with each other, and they greeted each other warmly. Baozhai has left a lot of buildings on the Niujiao mountainside, which cost a lot of jade and wood from the fairy family. If it works well, the result is like digging a well and running halfway. It is no wonder that the old patriarch Zhangji deliberately took him on a trip to Xindu Mountain and drank tea at King Shandu. Self-cultivation and self-cultivation Wushou's Taoism couldn't be relieved. Today, only less than 1/3 of the shops are open for business. In addition to the various mountain grasses cultivated in the spring dew garden, there are also precious orchids similar to the orchid house. The old cook specially compiled an orchid spectrum for this purpose. Heard that books sell better than orchids. In addition, there are all kinds of antique calligraphy and paintings, miscellaneous utensils, and the prices are not low, but the shop can guarantee that they are all genuine, and there are a lot of treasures that Ma Di carefully collected, all of which are stored here for sale. The deducted financial fan has smashed all the savings into it, and there have been many leaks and holes. Overall, he still made a lot of money. Just like Qin Pingon, who had seen Liuxia Guanqing and Bai Kei, the female cultivators of Zhuchai Island, almost all of Lu Chongrun's direct disciples had worked part-time here to help the shop buy things, and they were all unpaid. Zhao Wan and Tianjur will often come here to help. Nalan Yuyu, a small abacus, has inherited the fine tradition of the family. At a young age, she wanted to exclusively manage the business of a building which was vacant anyway. There are so many shops, and before opening she will sign a contract with Luopa Mountain to guarantee the bottom line. Every time he passed this Nujiadu, Qin Pingon couldn't help but think of the old man named Hong Yonghua at the Xianxia ferry in Dilong Mountain. The last time I went to Qingfanfang, Qin Pingon used 5 small summer money to buy a copy of the copybook of Shizai Tai, which is very close to the original appearance. The opening of the copybook has 5 characters. Shizai's sword is sparse. For children, what it means to grow up is to be able to eat whatever they want regardless of their parents. For adults, what it means to be rich is that you can buy whatever you want regardless of the price. Going to Nyojiao Ferry, Qin Pingon glanced at the eye-catching wooden sign standing on the side of the road and nodded. Zhou Xian was still very diligent and did not procrastinate at all. Now there are 2 cases up and down, and the family owns 3 ferries. The earliest dragon boat turned the ink, then the Fengyuan ferry, and later Lu Jubao and Yu Panshui, who visited Qingping Jianzhong, jointly sent a ferry called Tongyin. The rank is comparable to that of a dragon boat. Although it is not a giant ferry that can cross continents, the route spans half a continent without any problem, and its cargo capacity is even better than that of a dragon boat as an ornamental ship. If he wasn't worried about the suspicion of retribution, Qin Pingon would have wanted to buy the Thunder Car ferry with Daquan Yaoshi, or he would settle for the next best thing and book a 4th ship with the Daquan court. Why don't you want to do business to Fuyazu? This has an innate advantage for Luopao Mountain. This route will pass through Luhua Island, Yulongzong, and then go to Fiao Island. Not to mention Fiao Island, Qin Pingon has something else to keep an eye on. In addition, Lu Shen, the owner of the Nishang, sent an invitation letter, saying that the master of her sect had just successfully exited the customs and entered the Jade Realm. I wanted to ask if there were any young hidden officials. Time to attend the celebration. Of course, this kind of invitation is just a passing scene. Lu Shen is satisfied to get a letter of refusal, because she knows very well that Qin Yingguan would never go across the sea to her sect to watch the ceremony. Lu Shen's sect is located on an island in the southwest sea of Howren World. The wild monsters invaded and evacuated during the war. Later, they returned to their hometown and replaced a neighboring island to rebuild the Patriarch's Hall. Back then in the Chunbazhai Conference Hall, the female boat owner Lu Shen was a young Jindan with very low qualifications. Among the many boat owners and stewards, she was the lowest in realm, so the seat was placed near Xiao Yunyan at the door, but Lu Shen was the one with the lowest level. There is a junior sister who is extremely young, but is a veritable genius of Taoism, a golden elixir and earth immortal in her 20s, so the new hidden officer would threaten her, willing to spend 200 grain rain money, or equivalent Danfang materials, to change her junior sister and take over the ferry Nishang. Of course, that soared in the end. Zhang's discussion did not lead to any fatalities. Lu Shen and Lu Yu also got an errand at the time, and they became the bookkeepers in the lobby. The ink-turning dragon boat slowly landed on the shore, and a boy in green clothes swaggered off the deck. His 2 sleeves flew up, and behind him was a girl with a green bamboo stick. It was Qin Lingjun and Guizhujiu who had attended the opening ceremony of the Huangliang sect and went to the capital of Mengliang Kingdom again. After the 2 groups met, Qin Pingon smiled and said, "I'm finally back." Guizhujiu smiled brightly and asked, "Elder sister didn't go home with master?" Qin Pingon explained, "She wants to help your little brother, and Tong Yezhou has to dig a brand new ditch. Some people are busy. Pei Qian won't go back to Luopao Mountain for a while. If you want her, feel free to do so anytime. You can go to Tongye Continent." Qin Lingjun held back for a long time, but he still couldn't hold back and asked, "Master, they all told Hongxia and Yunzi to run errands in the past. Did the big white goose invite me to Qingping Jianzhong's side to participate in the grand event and paint the future?" The imperial decree and the secret decree, the former is for outsiders to see and the latter is more valuable. Qin Lingjun has already thought about the drama of 3 invitations and 3 rejections. Isn't there such a particular emphasis in officialdom? Whether I answer or not is my business, but it would be too much to say that Cui Dongshan did not invite him. Qin Pingon said, "I didn't mention you. Dare to dig into Qin Lingjun's side? Cui Dongshan really has no such courage." But where did Qin Lingjun know about the inside story involving the love and murder of his husband and students? Qin Lingjun asked tentatively. The big white goose knows that I want to serve as the royal enshrinment of the Mengliang kingdom, and thinks that I will not be invited? I am afraid that I will have a heavy business and I can't escape, right? It must be so. Qin Pingon said, I didn't talk to Cui Dongshan about this. I just said that you and Zhujiu were watching the ceremony at the Huangliang school. Qin Lingjun was sluggish and speechless for a long time. How can I be worse than Hongxia and Yunzi, who are in the same realm? Back then that Yunzi was still a helper behind his own ass. The boy in Xingyi immediately thumped his chest and stood up. What a big white goose. When he becomes the suzerain, his eyes are higher than the top, and he looks down on the old friend who shares weal and woe, and I am also angry. Qin Pingon said angrily, It's okay to go if you really want to. I'll say hello to Cui Dongshan. You'll take the Fengyuan ferry with Hongxia and Yunzi later. Qin Lingjun said angrily, Go for a hammer, the big white goose has no sincerity. Next time I go back to Luopa Mountain I have to talk to him well, and he is not like a brother like him. I don't cowardly see anyone, but if I see the opportunity is not good, I cowardice faster than anyone else, and I can always convince myself that I can't hide my ears. What is the size? The man can bend and stretch, and the face that is thrown on the ground is not a face. Guizhujiu smiled and said, Master, on our way to the capital of Mengliang Kingdom, we met a middle-aged man of Taoism who traveled all over the world, with a sword on his back and a wine jug hanging on his back. The Taoist name is Chunyang and the surname is Lu Mingyan. Qin Lingjun raised his head over there and picked his nose. A Taoist name, a name that I have never heard of. My uncle is not very arrogant. If it is said that Bai Xian is in the pavilion on the side of the road, he has worked hard to compile a heroic book that insists on asking Pei Qian for a fair copy of the rivers and lakes. Then Qin Lingjun has not been idle all these years. He inquired about news everywhere. Through Shanshui Dibao, Jingguashuiyu and various gossip, he worked hard to collect information, and all the cultivators in the Ascension and Immortal realms in the vast world were wiped out. In the end, collected into a thin booklet, Qin Lingjun named it Passers-by. It is used to warn myself that when I see these old gods in the future, let's be a passerby who passes by them, pass by, don't talk and don't climb high. Qin Pingon nodded with a smile. It's a senior I just met in Tongye continent before. It's from our Aquarius continent. The dojo where this real person Jedon is located is on the border of Mengliang Kingdom, so only then will we revisit the old place. Not long ago, Senior Lu came to our Luopao mountain as a guest. If you came earlier, maybe you could save the seniors for a meal and a drink? Qin Lingjun stopped immediately, shook his hand, rubbed his clothes, winked at Guizhujiu, implying that she should stop talking. It was nothing interesting, it was just a chance encounter, drank a little wine and chatted a few words. Some are not. There is no need to show this kind of wine situation to the master. Some deeds are not worth mentioning, just let it go with the wind. Guizhujiu smiled and said, I drank it a long time ago. Qin Lingjun and Chunyang Zhenren can chat very well. On the ferry boat he took the other party and drank a drink. The fly in the ointment is that the other party can't draw punches. Until now Qin Lingjun is still muttering. I don't know if Brother Lu would not or would not. At that time, after drinking some wine, Qin Lingjun felt that the atmosphere was good, and asked if the other party was a great monk of the 14th realm. Immediately asked if it was the Ascension realm. The Taoist priest looked rather helpless. Before he could speak, Qin Lingjun asked if he was an immortal. The Taoist priest shook his head again and Qin Lingjun would not ask. The real person didn't answer. Qin Pingon turned to look at Qin Lingjun with a playful smile. A good doesn't wait for him to speak, can always bypass key issues. Is this a talent? Qin Lingjun raised a palm high with a sullen face and said solemnly, Master, don't say it, I understand it. Remember, I promise not to be an example. I'm kicking the iron plate again. This kind of thing is familiar and it's good to get used to it. Isn't it an example? Qin Pingon smiled and touched the dog's head of the boy in Xingyi. Master Lingjun, do you regret it? Otherwise, the seniority on the mountain will rise again. After all, I have to call Chunyang Zhenren as senior. The boy in Xingyi shrank his neck and laughed dryly. He hurriedly grabbed the master's hand with both hands, shook his arms for the master and stretched his muscles and bones. While complaining, Guizhujiu explained to the master the reason for the drink with his heart. It turned out that Qin Lingjun felt that the Taoist priest looked at her with incorrect eyes, sneaking and seemed to have ulterior motives. You are still very polite and you have a lot of good things to say about you, master. In addition, when the Taoist Chunyang said goodbye to her and Qin Lingjun, he reminded her with his heartfelt words, reminding Guizhujia's brand new flying sword of life, don't show it to others easily. Qin Pingon was pleasantly surprised and said, is there a second flying sword of destiny? Guizhujia grinned, in the colorful world, a certain outing was purely a mistake and it happened out of nowhere. Qin Pingon smiled and said, prevent arrogance and impatience and make persistent efforts. Guizhujia shook his head, that won't work. If you don't put your tail up in the sky, you will be sorry for your master. Don't talk to Qin Lingjun. It's not about who learns from whom and we make progress together. Master, is the strength in your hands okay? Qin Lingjun couldn't listen to the voices of the master and the apprentice, but felt aggrieved and continued to hold the master's hand, so he had to walk sideways like a crab and whispered, I'm not used to sailing carefully for 10,000 years. I have traveled a lot of rivers and lakes, and I am good at seeing all directions and listening to all directions. I found that Senior Chunyang was on the ferry before and looked at Guizhujia twice. A sanctimonious guy, when he encounters a wicked person he wants to help find out. Guizhujia, it is very hurtful for you to file a slander on the master's side. Master, you are so indiscriminate, I feel strange in my heart. Uncomfortable. Qin Pingon laughed. Wan Qiong Wei Bo Tui Qing Lu Qin Tui Yu Qin Qing Lu Bixiao Cave Master Taoist Ancestor Most Holy Teacher Zheng Juzhong. In this series of lists, randomly picking 3 of them to provocate, and picking them at random is probably a huge problem that makes people collapse. Let a great cultivator of the Ascension realm choose with his eyes closed, and his mind will also be unstable. Hit your luck. Even if the luck is the best, Wan Qiong, the military saint, and Wei Bo, the king of Beiyue Mountain, have to be selected. What should I do? Not to mention that Qin Lingjun is now the cultivation base of nascent soul realm. It is no wonder that the biggest ambition for so many years is to not be killed by a punch. In the early years I just followed Qin Pingon to the town, right at the blacksmith shop, and scolded Wan Qiong in front of him for not being shy, and he dared to rob me of my master even when he was a lot of age and beat you half to death. Later I patted a young Taoist priest on the shoulder more than once. The Tsing-Yi kid went back after the incident and came to a conclusion, how did I know that the other party was from the 14 realms and I couldn't blame me. On Wei Bo's side, when my master is absent it is Wei Shanjun. When my master is there, Brother Wei, I once had a closed door at Piyu Mountain in the early years. Once he spat fiercely on the ground, twisted and twisted his toes, then squatted down and asked Brother Wei, what's the matter with you, why you can't get up from lying on the ground. When I met the national teacher Cui Yu, I didn't recognize the identity of the other party. The boy in Tsing-Yi once said cruelly, if you want to see my master, you have to kill me first and then step over me. The new friends I met in Beiju Luzhou by Busy and Chinzhuolio are actually the same person. As a result, I had a solid meal with that white Busy. When the two sides said goodbye, I felt that the good buddies were drinking too much and talking shit. In other words, a Yujiang water snake who was the golden core at the time, jumped up and slapped the dragon slayer on the head. A young Taoist boy rode a bull into the town from the east, and Qin Lingjun just caught a glimpse, so he pressed the cloud head, patted the bull's horn and said, my mountain is full of grass. As soon as I hear it, I will understand. In the end, the boy in Tsing-Yi kindly suggested, Daozu, it's better to change his name. I heard that the scholar dressed in white who claimed to be a friend's apprentice, recognized him as a nephew. Well, this cheap nephew of a lower generation is by Diqing Zheng Juzhong. Qin Lingjun's resume in all corners of the world is still alive and kicking. In Zhu Lian's words, he has never seen such a big fate. How many good things Qin Lingjun has done in his last life, how much virtue he has accumulated in this life to be able to be so blessed. Zhu Lian rarely had something he couldn't understand. On Qin Lingjun's side, after thinking about it, it was true that auspicious people had their own celestial signs, and it was really only possible to explain them in this way, otherwise there would be no solution. Qin Pingon smiled and said, actually Cui Dongshan invited you to Qingping Sword Sect, but I refused. When I boarded the ship, Cui Dongshan still didn't give up and wanted to haggle the price, hoping to change his mind and let you go. Don't give me a scolding. Qin Lingjun let out a sigh, put his hands on his hips and laughed aloud. Let's just say it's impossible for the big white goose to forget Uncle Qin. Of course Guizhujia knew the truth. If the master lied, one would believe it. So even though the story is false, happiness is true and fools are blessed. Qin Pingan smiled and said, "Bamboo wine, I made a bamboo box for you. Try it back and see if it fits on your back." Guizhujia's eyes lit up and he said excitedly, "Okay, very good, very good. The little bamboo box that I have been toiling around with finally has a mansion to settle in." Judging from her posture, it seemed that she did not intend to return the small bamboo box to senior sister Pei for the time being. Qin Lingjun glanced at Guizhujia. Alas, he didn't grow up, he was a fool. Qin Pingan turned his head and said with a smile, "Hongxia Yunzi talk to you about something, chat while walking." Under the water, dressed in yellow, standing slim and slim, living in the mountains for many years, he has the demeanor of being a secluded and independent person. Both her and Yunzi's Taoist names were taken by Cui Dongshan with help. In Qin Pingan's opinion, only Hongxia's appearance and temperament are actually not much worse than Huang Yiyun. Qin Pingan is not fake, but he is not a fool who can't see how bad a woman is at all. Qin Pingan smiled and said, "This trip to Tongyi's Hao will not be able to return to Luopa Mountain in 3 or 2 years. I estimate that it will be as short as 7 or 8 years, and it may be as long as 10 years or even 20 years, but don't worry. You will definitely not be busy in vain." For example, on the Hongxia side, Qingping Sword Sect will help you to exchange credit for the place in the future. Even if the credit is not enough, Cui Dongshan can also help to make up for it. As for Yunzi, Cui Dongshan will help you in the future. There are also arrangements in Dongshan. Hongxia said softly, "Shanju, I actually saved some belongings myself." She was in Huanghu Mountain and she had been cultivating spirituality for a long time, and she could almost become one of the 5 biggest opportunities on the platform of Lizhu Cave in the past, so it was obvious how Hongxia's cultivating qualifications were. According to Cui Dongshan, as long as Hongxia is willing to practice honestly and not to cause trouble, it is not difficult to find a fairyland. Stale Pingan said with a smile, "As soon as Dadu goes to the water, whether it is Chidu in Aquarius continent or the new Dadu in Tongye continent, it cannot be done with money alone. Besides, this is an official business and there is no need to let it be done. The truth is that you pay for your own money, not to mention that when you enter the upper 5 realms in the future, if you want to start a sect, you need to spend money. There are many places and there are only places you can't think of. When you don't have enough money, save more, always it's a good thing. Spirits and monsters walk through water and turn rivers into flood dragons, especially if they want to succeed in crossing the river. The pass has never been dangerous, not only in the process of crossing the water, but also outside of Dadu. For example, the Jidu in Luzhou in Beiju has a long history and has 3 Shuijing, but after the battle of slaying the dragon before Qin Lingjun successfully transformed the Jiaolong into the nascent soul realm, there is no example of the success of the Shui in the history of the continent. The root cause lies along the coast of Dadu. There is no dynasty or Xinfu Mountain, together with the Yunshao Palace of Dun Chongxian Department, Duckweed Sword Lake and Shuilongzong. Because it is difficult not to be deliberately made difficult by other forces, the entire water transport of Dadu is equivalent to being cut into sections. The most important thing is that the aquarium walks the river, especially the Jiaoqiu, which will take away a considerable part of the water transport. Use it for your own use and then return the Dadu water transport to the sea. What's more, no matter what one's background is, it is natural to walk in clouds and rain, and it is easy to make waves flood the sky and cause floods. If the dynasties and countries along the way are unable to stop them, they do not care, then the flood disaster on both sides of the strait is a natural disaster. But if there is a layout, the qi cultivator responsible for cleaning up the mess will spend a lot of his own spiritual qi, and the spiritual qi of heaven and earth that the cultivator saves, in the final analysis, is not the money of the gods. What's more, this loss is not only a huge sum of real money, but also involves Guizhua and mountains and rivers. In fact, the Dadu of Haoranjuzhou is in the same situation, which makes it extremely difficult for the aquarium, especially the water dragon, to improve their realm by walking through water. But now there is an exception, that is, this Chidu in Aquarius continent has been destroyed by Dadu. The Li dynasty is in complete control. Therefore, it is said that the descendants of dragons and Narcissus are all lining up in one continent, trying to get in touch with each other, waiting for the invaluable customs clearance letter, issued by the Ministry of Rights of Dali. On the side of Paidu, 9 dojos and water houses have been established, which can be used for the retreat of Jindan Earth Immortals who practice the water method. There is hope that 9 new nascent soul realm will appear. Therefore, on Tongye continent now the most hope is that a brand new Dadu will appear out of thin air. Among the Qi practitioners, of course, those who are expected to improve their realm by walking the river are the water spirit monsters in Chuanzi. Just like Ko Xuanxiu, the woman of the East China Sea near Pushan. The reason why he found the buried river Bio Palace was because he borrowed the waterway with Liuoro, the of water. Nowadays, people, gods, ghosts and immortals in the world, where are the rivers and lakes? Only one of the letters in the basket, one of which is from Uncle Dadu Lily, who was born in the old Qiantang. Chao Yong asked Qin Pingon if he could help the water house, and asked the Dolly Court for an extra place to go to the river. He spoke directly, saying that there was an established quota for Uncle Lily, but it had already been given away, but he still needed one. It seems that Yang Hua, the Ho of Chongchun, has no plans to use that quota, so I don't know if Qin Shanju can do me a favor. Let's talk to Yang Hua first, which means that the Marquis of Chongchun will transfer the quota to the Lily Mansion. Presumably the Dolly Court will not block it. As long as the master of Qin Shan is willing to match up, there will be a heavy thank you after the event is completed. Hongxia likes to live in a secluded dojo, but she doesn't doubt that the mountain master is testing people's hearts. So Hongxia just said calmly, Shanju, I never thought of starting a mountain and establishing a sect. I know my weight. This life is only suitable for practicing alone, relying on water to grind kung fu stupidly, and increase my cultivation little by little. It's not good to be the founder of the mountain, let alone a sect. Even if it is a small hill with only a few dozen people, I am destined to be the founder of the mountain, so I stay in Luopao Mountain for a long time. When something like this happens, I can do it for the sect. Do something and then return to the dojo to continue practicing. That is the most suitable choice for me. Qin Pingon hesitated for a moment. Luobao Mountain already has millet grains as the right guardian. You may have guessed it, I plan to let Qin Lingjun serve as the left guardian so that there will be no more mountain guardians to enshrine. So you are in Luopao Mountain even if you are in the Jade Pure Realm or even later. The Daos achievements will be higher only in terms of identity. Luopao Mountain really can't give you more. Hongxia smiled and said, I guess only Immortal Master Jing Qing didn't see it. On the Mountain Master's side, Hongxia is not so restrained. But in Jisa Peak Patriarch Hall or in Zushan Jilin Peak, she couldn't help but be nervous, and it's no wonder that Hongxia in Luopao Mountain is not a sword fairy or a martial arts master, a spirit practitioner's nascent soul realm. What? In the words of Peixiang, who is now a friend of the boudoir, the two of them are the most embarrassed in the whole Luopao Mountain. The two nascent soul realm are not as relaxing and comfortable as the Dongfu realm of the millet grain. It just happens to be a realm for people to see jokes. Qin Pingon couldn't help laughing. So if you want, I can make a suggestion to Cui Dongshan, and you and Chiu will serve as the guardian of the Qingping Sword Sect together. I took the initiative to give offerings to Qingping Sword Sect, and it was two different things from Cui Dongshan, a student who was digging his feet there. Hongxia's face changed slightly and he quickly shook his head and said, the Mountain Master has taken it with good intentions, but I would rather be here than I would never dare to go to Sect Master Cui as an errand. Qin Pingon smiled and said, it seems that Sect Master Cui has a bad reputation. Hongxia smiled knowingly, kept silent, did not approve or deny. The Mountain Master will not chew his tongue indiscriminately. The content of these conversations today will not be passed on to Sect Master Cui. Qin Pingon waved to Qin Lingjun. The boy in Tsing-yi immediately dropped his sleeves and strode. Qin Lingjun finally caught a great opportunity to teach others, moistened his voice and said earnestly, Yunzi, it's better than here. I'm covering you when you go to Qingping Sword Sect. Your realm is not high, change it. This is a new site and you need to deal with outsiders often. If you are unfamiliar in life, remember to keep your temper, be kind to people when you go out, make more friends, don't bully others, don't grin at people when you encounter a little bump. A little bigger, it will ruin the reputation of our Luapa Mountain. If the master doesn't take care of you, I will take care of you too. You must learn more from me. Smile when you meet people, friends everywhere, remember? Yunzi nodded silently. Probably in the entire Luapa Mountain, only Yunzi is the most determined to believe that this ancestor of Lingjun is really capable, and even admires him from the bottom of his heart. After Qin Lingjun put his hands together, he nodded and turned his head to look at Hongxia. Hongxia, it's a big girl, just be very careful. The atmosphere outside is not as simple as ours. Especially you should pay more attention to those who are looking at people. The dog-like, young and promising cultivator of genealogy, don't listen to a few rhetoric that don't cost money, and then become fascinated by those embroidered pillows. Forget it, the women's college will not stay. I guess you can't listen to it now. It doesn't matter. I turned around and said hello to Chief Mi and asked him to help check. Then again, if there is a suitable and favorite Taoist candidate, you don't have to be too reserved. Women chase men's interlayer yarn and you look good. As long as the other party is not blind, he will take care of him. Yunzi is a rough child, so I'm going to tell him not to cause trouble, to endure it if you can. You're different, don't be afraid of trouble. There is me and Chief Mi to help you. The boy in Tsing-yi was so old-fashioned that he was like a father, giving face-to-face advice to a pair of children who were about to travel far away, repeatedly admonishing them. Hongxia smiled and said nothing. Waiting patiently until Qin Lingjun finished talking, Qin Pingon smiled and took out 2 celadone water from his sleeves. It's my parting gift. I wish the horse a success. Everything goes well. Go early and return early. These 2 gifts, the rank is about the same. You can divide it by yourself and you can choose according to your own eyes. Qin Pingon got them from Shuolongzong. Sun Jia of the northern sect gave a pair of bull roars, and Xiao Jingji of the Nanzong presented a midge, also known as Little Mojiao. However, the 2 goose yellow and lotus blue inkstones were made by Qin Pingon himself. In this state anyway, there are the most porcelains. Qin Pingon is an expert and his vision is not bad. Qin Lingjun stretched his neck and was very greedy, so he winked at Yunzi, implying that the other party has some eyesight. Accept it generously first, and then secretly lend me to play for 2 days. I never thought about Yunzi being so stunned, so he nodded and said, fellow Taoist Jingqing, I understand. Qin Lingjun was stunned on the spot. You can understand it, just understand it in your heart. Sure enough, the brain was hit with a chestnut and Qin Lingjun immediately hugged his head. After that, Fengyuan ferry docked, Luo Peishan held his long life, and Chuanfu Wei Wenlong and his party all got off the boat. Hongxia Yunzi and the girl Cui Huohuan, and the mountain master Qin Pingon each bowed and said goodbye. On a bright moonlit night, the sable-cap girl who was swaying all the way to the top of the mountain saw a beautiful girl with a hand inkstone hanging from her waist, sitting alone on the railing, tapping her hands on the railing and looking into the distance. Yo, the little girl's film, she is not young and the realm is not high and there is a flying sort of life in it which is still a little interesting. Just a little girl who looks nothing special. Can she really deal with Pei Qian, who is already a martial artist of the end? Xiago pointed his toes. One jumped and stood on the railing, his arms crossed his chest, looked straight ahead and said casually, Hey, what are you thinking? Hey, what are you thinking? Xiago was stunned. Why learn from me? Why learn from me? Little girl, are you mentally ill? Be careful in being rude to you. Little girl, are you mentally ill? Be careful in being rude to you. I'm an idiot. As a result, the girl no longer parroted her tongue, but turned her head and gave Xiago a thumbs up. Xiago rubbed his chin. The little girl's family, why is it so uncute? Guizhuzhou said, Listen to my master, you are more than 10,000 years old, and you haven't married yourself yet, old girl. Xiago choked for a moment and said dully, You know the fart. You know shit. Guizhuzhou, if you do this again, I'll be rude to you. Oh. Xiago sneered and finally stopped learning from me. As a result, the girl began to repeat, Listen to my master, you are more than 10,000 years old, and you have not married yourself, old girl. Xiago was a little frustrated and he couldn't beat him. After all, he was Qin Pingan's direct disciple and now he was on the pedigree and he was still half a closed disciple. Scolding. It seems like I can't scold again. To say that it was just a shrew, Xiago learned some skills in the town, but the problem is that this little girl named Guizhuzhou has a very strange brain and ideas. Xiago was afraid that he scolded him for a long time, but the little girl didn't reply a word, and then gave him a thumbs up. Xiago felt that he could hold back his internal injuries. Guizhuzhou sincerely comforted, It's nothing, there are many old girls around me who can't marry. Xiago sat down and didn't really want to chat with Guizhuzhou, but he just came so he just left. He couldn't lose face. Guizhuzhou took out a bamboo flute from his sleeve. Unknown tune, the flute is ethereal and melodious. There is no one around and the moon is bright. When the world is lonely, the sound of the flute is especially clear. It's pretty nice. The cranes in the sky and the dragons roar outside the clouds. The sound is in the courtyard. Xiago waited until Guizhuzhou put away the bamboo flute, first commented and praised and then asked casually, Are you homesick? Guizhuzhou answered the question, In the summer palace, the master said that the scholar said that school books can prolong the life of ancient books. Umbrella Xiego nodded. Collection of books is to correct mistakes. The reasoning in books and outside books is the same. Your master's words are still a bit profound. Guizhuzhou snorted, turned his head and said in surprise, "How could master lie? You are not a fool. I almost thought we had nothing in common." If you only listen to the first half of the sentence, Xiego wants to kill people, but if you add the second half of the sentence, Xiego doesn't know how to answer for a while. Note 1: Zhou Xian was written yesterday as a traveler, which is a typo. Sort of Coming Chapter 988. At the end of the first month of the 6th year of Junpei, there was a torrential rain in Chuzhou. At noon it was still as dark as night, but suddenly the thunderstorms stopped. At the beginning of the rain, the mountains were full of verdant green and the spring was warm. Drops of raindrops fly in the spring breeze. Qin Pingon had lent the boxing manual given by Kong Ho to Zhou Lian to read. Since the two sides agreed to ask a fist fight in the capital of Nanyuan Kingdom, then they would have a solid fight. Xiao Yunyan and Mrs. Yanyan, who have been visiting the mountains and rivers in Beipingzu, will visit Luopao Mountain together. Because Feijian had already sent a letter in advance and told Ji Sifeng the date of the itinerary, Qin Pingon brought Wei Wenlong to the gate of the mountain today to drink tea and others. Wei Bo appeared out of thin air at the gate of the mountain, Xiao Xiao Susu hearty and clear, dressed in a snow-white robe, and his posture was as high as a jade mountain. Sitting at the table, Wei Bo poured himself a cup of tea and said that your two guests have already arrived in Huaihuang County. Qin Pingon smiled and said, Wei Shanjun also needs to inform me about such trivial matters? It's really sincere, but you can help me go to the town to help me meet you. That's the face. Wei Bo didn't answer, just thanked him. He didn't plan to sit for a long time. After drinking a bowl of tea, he returned to Shanjun Mansion without delaying Shanju Chen's hospitality. Because the Chunyang Zhenren, who was a guest at Luopao Mountain a few days ago, used his great supernatural powers in one step to shrink the mountains and rivers. He took a step and went straight to the northernmost point of Aquarius Island. Judging from the posture, he was going to cross the sea and travel north to Juluzu. For some unknown reason, Zhenren returned to the realm of Beiyue and came to the top of the vassal called Yuanmu Peak in Luopao Mountain. On the mountain wall of the ancient pines and old vines, Lu Yan was drinking wine with a gourd and a pinch in the other. Jianju wrote a pen and carved a Taoist poem on the cliff. Wei Bo got the reminder from Qin Pingon and immediately rushed to Yuanmu Peak. Taking advantage of the juncture of Chunyang's poetry, he used euphemism and invited the other party to his home Piyun Mountain. Follow the gourd to draw the scoop, and then go to the cliff to carve the list. Even if there is no complete poem, a list of 1 or 2 words will do. Lu Yan probably saw the face of Qin Shanju and did not reject this matter. As Wei Bo went to Piyun Mountain, there was still snow on the high mountain. Lu Yan did not hesitate to write and write. Bringing wine to the mountains, snow blowing drunken noodles, and seeing thousands of mountains in my life, the first concern is Piyun. Piyun Mountain is a new mountain in the end. If you talk about the cliff carvings, it is really shabby, and the 5 mountains of Aquarius Island may only be slightly better than the Nanyue of Fanjunmao. With such a virtuous list on the top of his own mountain, Wei Bo felt that Jinking's Zhongyue was earthy. Wei Bo drank the tea and said with a smile, if there are similar good things in the future, remember to count me as Pai Yun Shan. Qin Pingon agreed, and Wei Bo hurriedly poured water for Qin Shanju himself, and then came back satisfied with the excitement. Wei Wenlong kept his face sullen, looking at the mountain path from time to time. Qin Pingon found it interesting because Palace Master Wei, the god of wealth, was very nervous. Drinking tea at this moment was like using alcohol to suppress his shock. Walking from the other side of the mountain road and meeting at the mountain gate, Xiao Yunyan and Mrs. Yan habitually called Qin Pingon a hidden official. The god of wealth of Luopao Mountain, the head of Chuanfu, Wei Wenlong looked solemn, bowed his head and clasped his fist with Xiao Yunyan and said, Disciple Wei Wenlong, I have seen master. Xiao Yunyan just nodded in acknowledgement. Among the direct disciples of Chun Fan Zhai, Xiao Yunyan had never been very optimistic about Wei Wenlong, a disciple who only liked arithmetic. If you want to say that you are not close to Wei Wenlong, you will not. After all, there are only a few direct disciples of Xiao Yunyan, but it is also impossible to say how close the master and the disciple are. Moreover, Wei Wenlong was a stuffy gourd who couldn't beat a fart with a few sticks when he was a child, and Xiao Yunyan was never an amiable master or ancestor in Chunfanzhai back then. Xiao Yunyan turned his head and asked Qin Pingon, Lord Yingguan on the side of Luopa Mountain and Wei Wenlong on the side of the Zhuxian, how many seats are you sitting on? Qin Pingon smiled and said, the only one who ranks ahead of him is me, who is in charge of longevity, and the chief worshipper Zhou Fei. There are only 3, so Wei Wenlong is the 4th leader of our Luopao mountain. In general sects, there will be a few patriarchs who are older and have a high level of seniority. Most of them are given false titles. Although they have no real power, the position of the patriarch hall is still very high. If you open up with the contemporary patriarchs 1 or 2 realms, maybe the seat position will be second only to the suzerain, and the position of a sect master cultivator should be at the back. Xiao Yunyan said with a smile. I didn't feel anything before, but standing at the foot of Luopao mountain now seems to feel really good. Wei Wenlong smiled. Aware of Master's glance, Wei Wenlong immediately raised his face and restrained his smile. Qin Pingon complained, Xiao Jianxian, I have to remind you that Palace Master Wei is a big man in our Luopa mountain. Be polite, don't always put on the air of master and make a stinky face. Xiao Yunyan did not quarrel with Lord Yingguan. Wenlong, you mountain masters have criticized me. What do you think as a master, should I smile? Wei Wenlong said nervously, No, master is the same as back then, it's fine. When Palace Master Wei turned his head to speak to Qin Pingon again, he immediately stopped cowardly and said with a calm expression, Shanu Shurzuan has always been like this, with a cold face and a warm heart. There is no need for Shurzuan to do anything deliberately, I will only be uncomfortable. Qin Pingon and Xiao Yunyan looked at each other and smiled. Mrs. Yanyan secretly pouted. Back then, when she was an upside-down mountain, she really couldn't see that the Lingzi Weiss accountant in Chunfanzhai could have today's opportunities and achievements. People are more popular than people. Now this Lady Yanyan is named Mei Tao, and the Taoist name is Plum Blossom Master. At the Qingmei Temple in Nantang Lake, she spent 120 years of Taoism and finally falsely reported 150 years. Xiao Yunyan was invited by the suzerain Nailan Sihuan when he visited the Yulong sect, which had changed its dynasty. Mrs. Yanyan had a good relationship with the Shui Jinggong Yunsign in the past, so now both of them are named guests of the Yulong sect. Lord Yingguan seems to have finally noticed the second guest. Qin Pingon glanced at Mrs. Yanyan and smiled. It's always good to walk around the world and be kind to others. Mrs. Yanyan smiled embarrassedly and was full of slander in her heart. Lord Yingguan, your stinky fault of being a good teacher really needs to be corrected. Qin Pingon narrowed his eyes with a smile as if to see through her thoughts, then change it. Mrs. Yanyan deliberately looked blank and Qin Pingon didn't care. She smiled and said, Nailan Sihuan is still the same. It's good to talk about money and hurt feelings. I won't even give you this salary. The host and the guest went up the mountain together, and happened to meet at Xin Yuanji, who was walking down the mountain and practicing boxing. She and Qin Shanju looked at each other. Qin Pingon smiled and shook his head gently, indicating that she did not need to stop and speak. Mrs. Yanyan asked in a heartfelt voice, Is she? Qin Pingon was too lazy to answer such a question. Although Feijian had already sent a letter to Xiao Yunyan, Qin Pingon was still talking with Mrs. Yanyan about the invitation of the Kengwu of Jiui Mountain. After chatting a few words about the customs of Jiui Mountain, after all, some things, especially those involving insider information, will not be publicized in the Shanshudi newspaper. Exceptions are occasional. This made Mrs. Yanyan quite complacent. It was not too uncommon, but it was absolutely uncommon to have a prince of the 5 sacred mountains in Middle-earth personally invite him as a guest. Qin Pingon asked, Are you going to return directly to the Dragon Elephant Sword sect? Xiao Yunyan shook his head and said, Continue to travel north and return to your hometown. Qin Pingon nodded and said, It's time to go back and have a look. Xiao Yunyan, a sword immortal who has been away from home for many years, is actually a native of Beiju Luzhou. Back then, when Lu Jinglong brought his disciple Bai Shou to Chunfanzhai, of course there was a female cultivator by his side, Lu Sui, the direct disciple of the sect master of Xianxia, who could be said to be in love with Lu Jinglong. When he came to the door, Lu Jinglong helped his apprentice to order a sword-raising gourd in Chunfanzhai. Xiao Yunyan actually gave a very fair price, but it made Bai Shou's forehead sweat. And the well-deserved mountain gourd vine produced 14 gourds, but according to Xiao Yunyan's calculations, there were actually only 7 gourds that could be successfully refined into top-grade sword-raising gourds. Xiao Yunyan waited for nearly 1,000 years from the time he got a gourd vine to the time when the melon was about to ripen and fall, and the construction of a chunbazhai was just to be able to cultivate this thing. The reason why Lu Jinglong was able to reserve one of them was because some of the 7 people could not buy it according to the appointment, so chunbazhai only vacated an extra place, and it just happened to be picked up by Lu Jinglong, who would be better off early than by chance. The first floor of the bamboo building is small and not suitable for entertaining guests, so Qin Pingon led 2 guests to a temporarily idle house in Jiling Peak. After taking their seats, Qin Pingon took out a piece of paper from his sleeve and handed it to Xiao Yunyan, on which he listed a series of lists and items. Xiao Yunyan browsed it carefully and Qin Pingon said, "The price is not a problem as long as the other party is willing to speak, you can just help me agree." Xiao Yunyan immediately saw the doorway and asked in confusion, "What do you need these literary movements for?" On the top of the list, in addition to the Wenyun Calmus of Jui Mountain, there are also many big hilltops and monks in Middle-earth Shenzhou, Beiju Luzhou and Nambasizu, but most of the sects above are familiar to Xiao Yunyan. Regarding the 6 cultivators who bought the sword-raising gourd, Xiao Yunyan didn't hide anything from Qin Pingon back then, and there was nothing to hide anyway. Chunfan Zhai, also one of the 4 private residences in the Upside-Down Mountain, is actually more incense on the mountain than Liu's ape house in Aizhou, the plum garden of Mrs. Yen Yen, who was languidly leaning against the back of her chair, heard the word, Wen Yun, and she immediately became interested and full of energy. Could it be that our hidden official wanted to use the status of Wen Sheng's closed disciple as a springboard, and planned to become a Confucian temple in the future? The academy sacrificed wine, or even that. The Vice Hierarch. Qin Pingon explained, "Our little housekeeper in Luopao Mountain is called Qin Rushu, and her Taoist name is Nuanshu. Xianuanshu was born in Wenyun Fire Python. She is currently in the Dragon Gate realm. Because of her feet, her walk in the water is more special." Xiao Yunyan said, "Even with the help of these foreign objects she still needs to get out of the water." Qin Pingon smiled and said, "Don't worry about it, Shanren has his own plan." Lu Xianying once gave Qin Pingon a book-turning style. In fact, Qin Pingon forwarded it to Qin Wanshu at the beginning, and it turned out that when he arrived at Chao Qing's side, Chao Qingqing took the initiative to mention this at that time, and his face was helpless. Just let him stop thinking about it and just stay. After all, once Xiao Wanshu insists, let alone Chao Qingqing, neither the old cook nor Qin Pingon. Xiao Yunyan thought for a while, "I have some incense love with these sects and monks, but the items on your list are not a matter of price and there is no shortage of sects on the list. It's money, so my face may not be effective. Can you take out your name?" Qin Pingon nodded and said, "No problem, Xiao Dejiangxian is only responsible for paying the bill. If the other party doesn't want to receive money, he wants to barter or make some requests that have nothing to do with money. For example, the other party wants to let it's okay for me to attend the ceremony and ask for a seal. You all agree to it for me." Xiao Yunyan looked at Qin Pingon and was a little curious as to where this warm tree was sacred. Mrs. Yen Yen also stared blankly at the young hidden official. She felt sour in her heart. Why should I be deflated and wronged everywhere on the side of Lord Yinguan? That one is the Dragon Gate Realms Wenyun Fire Python, that's it? A priceless treasure? Qin Pingon coughed suddenly, reminding the two not to discuss this matter for the time being. Soon a girl in a pink skirt brought a plate of melon and fruit cakes. She knocked on the door softly and saw the master smiling and nodding. She crossed the threshold again, put the plate on the table and joined the 2 distinguished guests. After a blessing, the voice was clear and self-registered, and then Wanshu was about to leave. Mrs. Yen Yen glanced at the girl in pink skirt who had been described by the young hidden official as the housekeeper of Luapa Mountain, but she turned out to be a little girl carved in pink and jade and she looked cute. Qin Pingon picked up a citrus from the plate and handed it over with a smile. Qin Wanshu smiled shyly, shook his head gently and said softly, "If you have an order I will let you know and Wanshu will be waiting in the yard outside." Qin Pingon did not hold back but nodded with a smile. After the girl in the pink skirt left the house, Xiao Yunyan said with a smile, "After 1,000 years, I'm going back to my hometown this time, mainly to visit Xianxia. Qin Pingon nodded and said, "It's time to go over there to catch up." At that time Xiao Yunyan asked Lu Jinglong to Lu Sui, and the immortal weapon rank gourd vine was sent to Shuijing Mountain in Beiju Luzhou. Originally, once such a thing leaked out, it would easily be a disaster. If Lu Jinglong was not a swordsman in the Jade Purity realm at that time, and his master was not the Taihui sword sect with a strong heritage in Beiju Luzhou, Xiao Yunyan would have dared not open his mouth. Not to mention the sword cultivation avenue that will also be implicated in the death of an immortal embryo. After all, the wealth and silk are moving, not to mention this invaluable gourd vine. It is necessary to know that in the next millennium, a new series of sword raising may be born. Gourd. Xiao Yunyan asked tentatively, about sect master Lu and Lu Sui? Can Sir Yingguan help you to match them? Qin Pingan's head was heavy for a while and he said helplessly, Xiao Jianxian Xiao De Jiangxian. How can I say this as an outsider? Besides, Sun Qing, the head of Kaik Mansion, is not also one of Lu Dajia's admirers? Xiao Yunyan sighed. Lu Sui and Taihui Jinzong Lu Jinglong, Lu Sui master and himself, the true resemblance are all bitter love. This gourd vine was obtained by Xiao Yunyan and Lu Sui masters together in a secret realm in a broken cave. She deserves more credit for getting it, but she did not hesitate to give the treasure to Xiao Yunyan. A pair of Taoist couples were just wrong, due to various reasons and twists and turns, and ultimately failed to have a lover to become a family. Xiao Yunyan was also worried that in Beiju Luzhou he would not be able to keep the precious gourd vine on this mountain, so he rushed to Dianchuan Mountain alone. So when he met Lu Sui later, Xiao Yunyan regarded her as his own daughter. Qin Pingon asked curiously, what happened to the result? Mrs. Yan Yan reached out and took a tangerine, and threw the orange peel on the ground several times, giving the young hidden officer a side glance. She immediately bent down silently to pick up the orange peel, sat upright and put the orange peel on her lap. Xiao Yunyan nodded and smiled and said, the result is better than expected. It can definitely be refined into a sword-raising gourd. There are 8. I dare not say that it will be successful, but there is a certain hope. There is still a gourd, and this one, once it is refined, the sword-raising gourd has the best rank, but no one dares to gamble. After all, my offer is very high, even higher than the other 7 sword-raising gourds. To be honest, I did it on purpose and didn't want to sell it. Go out. Is this going to send me? Qin Pingan's eyes lit up and he said solemnly, as a gift for the establishment of the next sect in Luopao Mountain, it is too precious and not particularly suitable, but if Xiao Jianxian insists, I will have to be respectful rather than obedient. Mrs. Yan Yan smiled. Xiao Yunyan said, as long as Lord Yingguan is willing to match, I will send the unexpected sword-raising gourd, and then give this gourd white to Luopao Mountain. Mrs. Yan Yan's heart trembled slightly when she heard this. Xiao Yunyan, you are really willing to spend your money? Qin Pingon smiled and waved his hand. No, if I dare to say this, Lu Jiuxian will have to break up with me. Xiao Yunyan suddenly stopped talking. Qin Pingon asked with a smile, could it be that Bai Chong was well informed and asked you for the 8th sword-raising gourd before retreating? Xiao Yunyan nodded. Qin Pingon said, then don't hesitate, sell it. Why not sell it and ask for a price to death? Xiao Yunyan breathed a sigh of relief. Qin Pingon smiled and said, the bridge returns to the bridge and the road returns. A business is a business. This kind of thing is not at all hypocritical. Xiao Yunyan was relieved. Qin Pingon suddenly asked, the gourd that you might have bought and planted in your hand, not to mention the sky-high price you offered, if an acquaintance wanted to buy it from you, what price would it be? Xiao Yunyan stretched out a finger. Qin Pingon was speechless. An acquaintance bought it and needed 1,000 grain rain money. Xiao Jianxian, you are not doing business, you are stealing money. Mrs. Yan Yan said, on the way here I negotiated with Xiao Yunyan. If Lord Yingguan doesn't buy it, I will buy it and give it to Mr. Lu as a congratulatory gift to wish her to enter the Ascension realm. Qin Pingon nodded and said, I have a heart. After hesitating for a moment, Qin Pingon said tentatively, Xiao Jianxian, all of them are from his own family. 1,000 grain rain money, is it a bit too much? 500 pieces, I think it is more fair. After all, it is a gamble and losing the bet is a blow. Drift, there are 500 guyu money. I lost this worthless gourd, I can't bear it. Don't lose it. I'm worried at a glance. 500-inch. Xiao Yunyan was too lazy to haggle and asked with a smile, Master Yingguan, you really don't buy it? Qin Pingon was really tangled, scratching his head and said, If it wasn't for the digging of Dadu, I would just grit my teeth and buy it. Right now I'm really poor. There are actually many people who can send it, but Qin Pingon really has no confidence in his lucky. If he fails to become a sword-raising gourd, and if Lu Xianying listens to him by accident, Qin Pingon can fully imagine that he will be strangled by Lu Xianying's neck, held on his head and chased and scolded. If he is so rich, why don't he give it directly to him? My money. Qin Pingon glanced at Mrs. Yanyan, who seemed to be indifferent, waved her hand and signaled not to buy it, but at the same time said a word to Xiao Yunyan with her heart. Mrs. Yanyan's eyes were hot and she still said cautiously, Xiao Yunyan. Xiao Yunyan smiled and said, it's yours. Until this moment Mrs. Yanyan couldn't help laughing out loud. Qin Pingon twitched the corners of his mouth. Why, you only spent 100 grain rain money to make Mrs. Yanyan so happy? Mrs. Yanyan was suddenly dumbfounded. Xiao Yunyan smiled knowingly. Perhaps this is considered a gentleman with adult beauty? It turned out to be just now, but Qin Pingon had already guessed it. The reason why he didn't cut off the beard must be the phrase, I have a heart. After all, Mrs. Yanyan didn't keep it for herself but gave it to Lu Ji. Qin Pingon turned his head to look at the door and said, warm the tree, help us make a pot of tea, and the tea leaves will be made of wild mountain tea made by the old cook. The girl in the pink skirt hurriedly walked into the house, went to the cupboard to take out the tea set, and began to brew tea skillfully. Qin Pingon introduced with a smile. This Xiao Jianxian is the owner of Chunfanzhai in Upside Down Mountain in the past, Mrs. Yanyan, Taoist name Plum Blossom. Master, both of them are worshipped by the patriarch of the Dragon Elephant Sword sect in Nampo Suzhou. Qin Rushu, Taoist Wanshu, is our little housekeeper in Luopao Mountain. Wanshu was the first to come to the ancestral house in Huaihuang County with me. Speaking of this, Qin Pingan's eyes were gentle. It's the first one. As for the uncle Jingqing, go to the side first and come in second. The beautiful scenery of life is as beautiful as I first saw it. How beautiful the scenery is. Hearing this, Wanshu raised her head, her eyes soft and smiling. A thatched hut was built on the banks of the Rin River. A stall was placed at the entrance and 3 wine bowls were placed on the table. A young man in white, squatting by the river holding grass roots in his mouth with his eyes open, raised his hands and threw a pebble back and forth. There were 2 people who came according to the appointment about 2 miles away from the stall. A slender man in a Confucian shirt, Yu Lu, a martial artist from the far travel realm, carrying a bamboo box and holding a green bamboo stick. Another thank you, she is now the bottleneck of the Golden Core realm. Yu Lu turned his head to look at this Lianhe river and he felt cordial. It was a good place for fishing. After walking along the river with Xianxia for less than half an hour, he found 3 excellent fishing spots. Peeped pretending to be an umbrella. As for why they didn't go directly to the thatched hut from the wind, of course, it was thanks to the need to stabilize the Taoism. After all, they came to see Cui Dongshan, and they might even become the opponent's disciple. Being able to insist on not turning around and running away, the farther away from Cui Dongshan the better. Yu Lu felt that thank you for these years is a well-deserved achievement in self-cultivation. In order to make Xiaxia's mood a little more relaxed, Yu Lu deliberately found a topic and said with a smile, every fool knows that this Rin River, which is connected to the West Sea from one continent, plus several main tributaries, is a very suitable place for thousands of miles. Building a cornucopia of Xianxia ferry, but the problem is that when a fool knows that a certain business can make money, no accident, it is a pit. The unrepentant thank you smile is far-fetched. Where is she in the mood to care about a river? As Yu Lu said, this is indeed the case. Previously, in the mountains and rivers in the middle of Tongya Continent near the source, middle and end of the Lianhe River, all parties clung to each other. During the initial stage of the ferry, many forces retreated in spite of difficulties. They felt that their arms could not twist their thighs, and they were unwilling to spend money to waste water. I felt that I still lost a large sum of money. It was because the ferry was halfway through and the foundation was finally laid. It has become tasteless. One threatened to spend a lot of money to build a landscape formation to completely intercept the water transportation in the upper reaches of the Lianhe River, and the immortal clan power located at the mouth of the Lianhe River is not a thing. The shrines and the spirits of waterborne spirits who have lost their incense should be worshipped. Every day they make waves in the middle section of the Lianhe River, trying their best to draw water transportation. Most of these people are from the gods of lewd temples in small countries in the past, and they are also posing to build temples nearby. The temple when Hebo and the god of water who were sealed by the court. The most excessive is that it was only after the Xianxia forces who had withdrawn from the ferry that they found out that the Xianxia ferry located at the mouth of the Rin River was just a sham, and never really broke the ground at all. When the construction started, it was clear that from the beginning he wanted to come to the middle of the Lianhe to occupy the magpie's nest. After that there was a boy in white clothes who couldn't carry it and he was born out of nowhere. Of course the process was not going to be smooth sailing. The unidentified and skilled man named Yamazawa Yeshio knew the rules. Near the ferry he set up an arena to welcome heroes from all over the world and a wine stand. Approaching the hut, thank you for looking at the white-clothed boy, who was squatting by the river, and suddenly her breathing became short of breath, as if every step she took a lot of energy. Traveling to Aquarius Island together over the years, Yulu often teased her half-jokingly, "Be careful that your inner demon in the future is Cui Dongshan." Thank you is really afraid. She is afraid of Cui Dongshan, but even more afraid of the inner demon Cui Dongshan. Therefore Yulu's half-joking "two evils are the lesser of the two evils" finally made Xianxia make up his mind. Since he is destined to hide, he will face Cui Dongshan directly. This time I came to Lianhe bravely, thank you, because I hope it can alleviate the fear of Cui Dongshan. Otherwise once she becomes a cultivator of nascent soul she will try to break the bottleneck of nascent soul realm and enter the Jade Pure realm, in case the demon is really Cui Dongshan. Thank you, the thought of this makes me despair. Back then when we went to the Great Sui Academy to study together, Cui Dongshan seemed to be targeting her only. But I don't know why, this time I reunited after a long absence in a foreign land. Looking at Cui Dongshan who was squatting in a daze, thank you, and felt a little strange. The Cui Dongshan in my impression is not so tired. Cui Dongshan threw the cobblestone in his hand into the river, knocked out an aquarium spirit who sneaked here to spy on the information, and showed his true body on the spot, saying that the sky was white with fish belly, but at this moment he saw the center of the river. A herring weighing at least 300 catties floated up, and the belly of the white flower was so big. This is the New Year's Eve in the first month of the year. I took the initiative to bring fish and meat and I have dinner. There is no problem in setting up a seat at the head of the village. Cui Dongshan stood up and complained, "Yulu, why didn't you come here earlier?" And I was slapped with 3 sharp punches by a great master of martial arts with a golden body in vain. It's so heavy that outsiders can't imagine it. I vomited several kilograms of blood on the spot and I almost burped. If this happens, won't it hurt our thank you girl and spend an extra sum of money? Thank you, I don't understand at all and I don't want to understand. But Cui Dongshan didn't want to let her go. Thank you, tell me, why do you spend money? Just when thanked his face pale, Yulu smiled. Sect Master Cui thinks that if you hear the bad news, you will probably buy a lot of firecrackers to celebrate. Cui Dongshan stretched out his thumb towards Yulu, then shifted his gaze to look at the helpless thank you. Cui Dongshan sighed softly. Sorry for accepting such a stupid apprentice. Thank you for being so nervous that her palms are sweaty, and she already wants to return to Aquarius. People who haven't been to this stupid place have no right to say that she is cowardly. Before coming to this ferry, Yulu had inquired about some news with her. Anyway, it had already been spread. First, a martial arts master of the 7th realm would come to save people's disasters with money and money. One punch made the boy roll all over the ground, another punch made the boy spin around a dozen times in the air, and with the last punch the boy hit the ground in the face. In the end he made the warrior full of guilt and quickly helped the young man back to the stall. Another old immortal who is a golden elixir of earth, with 3 attack techniques, spared no effort to beat the boy in white. His clothes were shattered, and he lay in the pit, foaming at the mouth, convulsing all over. Half dead, struggling to get up, he staggered toward the stall like a drunken man. I heard that this young man Yishio was very arrogant. He shook his bowl and drank half a bowl of wine before spitting back half a bowl of blood. In the end, a Jindanjian sword cultivator came, also from Yamazawa Yeshio, but for some reason after a few words with the boy in white, this sword cultivator named Tao Ran turned his back on the battle, and instead defended the boy in white. It's not hard to guess, he must have given Tao Ran a higher price. The dog-eared Yishio who only accepts money as his ancestor. This is very Cui Dongshan. Yulu is not surprised at all. Cui Dongshan shook his sleeves, started to circle around thank you and said with a grin, "Since you are here, you should assume that you are my direct disciple, and you will be exempted from worshipping the teacher's tea. If you don't drink it, I am timid, I am afraid that you will poison you. Or spit in it." "Thank you for being tense and expressionless." Cui Dongshan was still circling over there. "Let me add another direct disciple from the genealogy ultimatum, thank you. Thank you for the fine sweat oozing from your forehead. Yulu didn't help this time, thank you for the rescue. He had to pass the test, walk on a single plank bridge and no one else could drag or help him." Cui Dongshan suddenly asked, "Yulu, did you bring the sword talisman cast by Longquan Jianzong in the early years? If you have, bring it and take it as a gift to thank you for the apprenticeship ceremony." Thank you, thank you." Yulu smiled and took out a few pocket swords from his sleeves and said, "Don't worry, it's all from the early years." Cui Dongshan took it and there were as many as 5. It was a little unexpected. He thought he would only have 3 swords if he died and asked with a smile, "Why so many?" Yulu explained, "When I had some spare money, I reported to Longquan sword sect that I lost 2 and bought 2 more. Su Xiaoqiao of the blacksmith shop by the Longshu River may be for the sake of my relationship with Chen Pingan. I didn't care about it, I just reminded me that there were only 3 things and Su Xiaoqiao also agreed to one of my requests. As for the other 2 swords, I bought them from the immortal master and the price was doubled." It is estimated that the other party still feels that they have done it. A good deal. Back then, in the Longzhou boundary of the former site of Lizidongshan, the Qi practitioners whose dojos were located in the mountains in the west wanted to fly into the sky and ride the wind, or pass through the Longzhou boundary. They all needed to buy a small flying sword from Longquan Jianzong. Sword charm. Now the old Longzhou has become the new state, and the Longquan Jianzong has also relocated to the northern part of Dalajingji. In fact, the Longquan Jianzong has no longer cast the sword charms similar to the customs clearance, but Wan Qiong made this token. The rules of Yufeng have been followed by everyone over the years, and no one dared to take the lead in making an exception. After all, Wan Qiong is still the chief worshipper of the Dali dynasty. Cui Dongshan praised, "Yulu, you are still smart." Cui Dongshan waved his hand and dragged the big fish that was drifting downstream towards him, and then shouted, jumping high and kicking the big fish. After finishing work and clapping his hands, Cui Dongshan nodded to himself, "I'm invincible with my feet, I just want to get it." The big fish that was kicked by Cui Dongshan and rolled to the ground rolled on the ground and suddenly transformed into a human form, covered in dust, sitting on the ground blankly, looking like a man with 5 big and 3 thick. Cui Dongshan stretched out his finger and scolded, "You are a bunch of bird thieves who are with the army, so serious, hiding in the water and looking at the bird east. Do you see my apprentice's fair skin and beautiful skin, round buttocks and good health, just greedy for her body and want to kidnap her to be Mrs. Yajai?" Before waiting for the dizzy and strong man to make a belly draft, Cui Dongshan swept his sleeves and beat the man back to his original shape, and fell heavily into the Rin River, splashing a lot of waves. "The 2 armies do not fight, this is the case. I'll spare your life and pass a message to your master. Mingren don't do secret affairs. If you have the ability, you can make an appointment with me. If he wins, the ferry will belong to him." "I won." "How could I? I have won against a famous far-flung master." The herring was in the water and did not dare to recover its body. With a vigorous shaking of its head and tail, it fled to the lower reaches of the Lianhe River. Cui Dongshan twitched the corners of his mouth. When the new ferry is completed, a large number of people will be needed to operate the ferry, and it will be difficult to maintain the normal operation of a Xianxia ferry without a number of 30 or 50 people. At that time, all these water spirit monsters from the shrine will be wiped out and none of them will run away. Do you need a salary? You are all killed, what money do you give? At Cui Dongshan's suggestion, the 3 of them walked up the river together and Yulu asked, "Does the ferry have a name?" Cui Dongshan said angrily, "It's not that easy to choose a good name that is both elegant and popular. I'm not a gentleman, so I can pick it up at my fingertips. Aquarius Island Niujiao Ferry, Xindu Mountain Qingshan Ferry, Lingbai Mountain Yin Ferry. This is the 4th private Xianxia ferry. Along the banks of the Rin River, there are now many small countries, mixed with fish and dragons. There are only a few old Jindan immortals who are regarded as magic and profound, who are national teachers or real people who protect the country. They are busy with a lot of titles and they can seal the 5 mountains of Chan for the new monarch, the righteous gods of rivers and waters, or the founders of mountains and schools. Very imposing, often concurrently serving as the chief worshipper and guest minister of several small countries at the same time. It's just that the Confucian academies will not take care of such things. Generally speaking, as long as there are no Qi practitioners who transcend the established rules of the Confucian temple, then the dynasties at the foot of the mountain will change, and the gentlemen and sages of the academy will not intervene in the political affairs of various countries. Yu Lu, do you know the origin of Tong Ye's name? Looking through some local chronicles and unofficial history, it seems that in ancient times, there was a heroic and powerful king in the Middle-earth divine continent who cut a piece of tung leaf in the palace garden into a chisel shape and gave it to his own younger brother. The latter came to Tong Yi continent, established a dynasty on the banks of the old Dadu. This old town, which has disappeared for many years, is called Fendu. When the water transportation was at its peak, the main tributaries were 12 rivers, including the Huihe and Shujiang and the Linggu changed. Today, Dequan, the buried river in the dynasty, is only a small section of the river from Fendu to the sea. As for the Rin River at the foot, it is just a small tributary of Fendu in the past, no more than 2,000 miles long. In fact, if we trace the origin of the Jade Guizhong, the 2 northern and southern sects, the most powerful and longest-standing sects in Tongyi's Hao, actually came from the same ancestor, so the surnames of the founders of the 2 sects are the same. Thank you, and also sincerely admire that Yu Lu is a pure warrior. She has roughly counted how many miscellaneous books she has read during her travels over the years. Cui Dongshan clicked his tongue in admiration and said, "If I ask you a question, I can give you 2 answers. Is this buy one get one free?" Yu Lu smiled and said, "Just when I added the thank you answer along the way." Cui Dongshan sighed, "Even if you Yu Lu just gave me a lost brain of this heirloom." Cui Dongshan put his hands on his hips. "Stupid apprentice, I plan to expel you from my division. I'm not joking with you, be serious. Don't say thank you, you are dumbfounded and overwhelmed, even Yu Lu is dumbfounded." The boy in white shook his shoulders from left to right, then raised a snow-white sleeve, shook it and said triumphantly, "Sir isn't here, you Su go Su." Yu Lu sighed, lowered his head, reached into his sleeve and rolled out an envelope with his fingertips. Cui Dongshan, with a speed that could not cover his ears, said to Xianxia decisively, "Good apprentice, I'm joking with you for my teacher, don't take it seriously." Yu Lu was still moving. Cui Dongshan walked like a fly, reached out to grab Yu Lu's arm with one hand and pushed the envelope back to his sleeve with the other. "Yu Lu, we are all good brothers who share weal and woe, don't do anything if you disagree." "What are you doing? Your brothers don't make a trump card at every turn, they will only hurt their relatives and their enemies." "Thank you, more and more like a cloud." "What is Yu Lu doing and what is Cui Dongshan doing?" Yu Lu said with his heart and thanks, "Before I came I roughly guessed your situation, so I secretly asked you for an amulet." "Thank you." Suddenly. If it wasn't for facing Cui Dongshan, Xianxia was actually an extremely smart and aura woman. Cui Dongshan raised his face and asked, "Thank you, you see my husband in the future, do you know what to call him?" "Just like the little mute riding the dragon lane, I have to call my master." "Thank you for the rare face." Yu Lu shook his head quietly. Cui Dongshan grinned, and it was rare that he did not continue to be disgusting. "Thank you." Holding the back of his head with both hands, Cui Dongshan sighed, "You can be serious and old-fashioned, but you can't speak harshly. Like me, good-natured and kind-hearted, there are really not many. The 2 of you were once the favored sons of the heavens. One was His Royal Highness the Prince of the Lu dynasty, who was the suzerain of the Song dynasty in the early years, and the other was a genius cultivator who claimed to be the most promising of the Lu dynasty to enter the Jade Realm. They have all become prisoners. Remember that you used to work for me as a handyman back then at the Yuan family's ancestral house in Erlang Lane? You have suffered a lot. When a person has no money, the good people, good and bad things he encounters are all true. So my husband, I still remember the woman's bowl of rice, the steamed buns handed out by a slug, the wooden man in the kitchen next door, the old woman's eggs wrapped in red paper, and so on, but I think a person's memory is too good not too good. There is an old saying that people don't put money in their pockets if they don't have a heart. It seems that if you want to become a master, you have to be ruthless. You can only be ruthless. Then a tough heart is a sharp knife that only hurts others. In fact, A soft hearted is also a dull knife, but it will only wear itself out. Every time I grit my teeth and tell myself not to be any more kind of person, the so-called maturity is a wake-up call for yesterday's self. Yu Lu is a little strange and Cui Dongshan is a little strange now because it is too normal. Back then Cui Dongshan never had a heart-to-heart talk with them on the way to study, and he never talked to people. Past things. Then Cui Dongshan smiled and asked a series of questions. Yu Lu, before you came to Tongyi's Hao, you have never been to Dilijiangsu, where the capital of the old Lu dynasty was located. So thank you for persuading you to restore your original state. Name and then establish a country on Tongyi's Hao? Another example may have to wait 20 or 30 years for her to become the national teacher. Another example is to advise you to go to Pushun Yunkatang and so on so that you can learn to prolong your life as a warrior. Inyan's fairy magic? Yu Lu said frankly, almost all of them were guessed by sect master Cui. The only difference is that I think you don't have to wait for 20 to 30 years. You just need to find a site in Tongyi's Hao and plan for a decade or two to establish a country. Cui Dongshan's eyes widened. Thank you. Are you so confident that you can enter the nascent soul realm? Xia nodded and said, at the most 20 years I will definitely be able to enter the nascent soul realm. This is still a good plan for the first retreat to fail. Cui Dongshan said in surprise. Then didn't I find another ready-made treasure? A nascent soul realm which is invincible enough to be beaten all over the banks of the Lianhe River. Isn't it worth more than the foundation of an empty ferry? Thank you silently. Cui Dongshan turned his head and said, Yu Lu, don't be pretentious and don't pretend to be sloppy. Those who chase the deer don't care about rabbits and show some courage that a big man should have. You don't have to wait for a decade or two. Lu, I've helped you find the site. So on the north bank of the Lianhe River back to the south bank side not far away there is a surprise waiting for you. As for the surprise, don't worry, let me sell it. I am most afraid of meeting each other without money. According to our seniority, we are still brothers and sisters from the same sect. When you become the king of a country, my apprentice will become a national teacher for you. With these 2 layers of relationship I can still lack it. Drink. Yu Lu stopped talking. He had said something to Xianxia before, not only asking her but also asking himself. Can the continuation of Guozhua in other continents be regarded as the restoration of the country? Cui Dongshan said for no reason, keep yourself low and set your sights high. Yu Lu asked, didn't you see very far? People who are in a hopeless predicament can never see the long term. Cui Dongshan shook his head, but no one can stop us from looking up at the sky. Thank you, of course, didn't dare to interrupt. If she heard Qin Pingon say such a thing she would definitely make a joke. Isn't this a frog in a well? Cui Dongshan smiled and said, yes, we are all frogs in the well. Cui Dongshan murmured in a low voice, young Shui. Sort of Coming Chapter 989. In the Huaihuang County City School, the school was over, it was still early, and the children from good families put up paper kites one after another. After drinking tea and chatting about landscapes, Qin Pingon took Xiao Yunyan and Mrs. Yan Yan out to stroll around Luopao Mountain. Pedestrians walked up to the top of the green hills, and the white ones were clouds and trees. I don't know how many days in the world. Never thought that Xiao Yunyan had found an excuse and went for a walk by himself without righteousness, which made Mrs. Yan Yan, who was alone with the young hidden official, extremely nervous. Qin Pingon walked to the top of the mountain with her, holding a colorful knot that looked like a copper coin, and asked with a smile, no? Mrs. Yan Yan's expression changed slightly. This colorful knot is made by refining the essence of many flower gods in the 100-blossom land. She has no direct relationship with her but has some origins. Madame Yan Yan was able to escape to the Hanging Mountain alive back then. The digital flower gods of the 100 Flowers Blessed Land contributed a lot in secret. So the last time we discussed the Confucian Temple, Mrs. Yan Yan and Bai Hua Fudi were very cordial. Qin Pingon put away the knot and said, you are accompanying Xiao Jianxian on the tour of the Middle Earth this time, and you can help me send a message to the blessed land of 100 flowers, saying that I will bring this item with me when I visit the blessed land next time. As for the return, it needs to be negotiated face to face. Mrs. Yan Yan showed a surprised look. Is the young hidden official giving her a favor in vain? Like the dynasty under the mountain, to announce the good news to those capitals whose names are on the golden list? But they all get paid. Moreover, this thing is a great surprise. How can a scholar who is admitted to the Xianxia can compare? There are many flower gods in the blessed land of flowers and everyone has a share. Therefore Mrs. Yan Yan can fully imagine what she and Xiao Jingyan will be like in the blessed land of flowers in the future. Guest. No matter how Qin Pingon and the flower master of blessed land talked after the incident, Madame Yan Yan might be able to get a guest in blossom blessed land. As the beauty of the upper 5 realms of plants and trees, who has become a plum tree, how can they have no thoughts about the blessed land of 100 flowers? This is just like the cultivator of the local demon tribe of Haoran regards Taishu Mountain as a holy place, and Shanzai Yeshio is fascinated by Beidasheng. Qin Pingon smiled and said, "Is this your reward for spending more than 100 years at the Qingmei Temple in Nantang Lake?" Mrs. Yan Yan smiled sweetly, "No problem. In the world of plants and flowers, there is actually only one ancestral hall." Qin Pingon wrapped his arms around his sleeves and walked up to the top of the mountain. "Mei Jing, that's the name, right?" Mrs. Yan Yan's expression changed slightly and her smile became far-fetched. Mei Jing is Mrs. Yan Yan's real name on the secret file of the Summer Palace, her real name of the demon clan. If she wanted to open up a plum garden under the eyes of the eldest disciple, Dao's second child, how could she not report her real name? Qin Pingon said, "How do you feel when you return to the vast world, return home in fine clothes and travel around the world?" In Upside Down Mountain, Mrs. Yan Yan could only support the puppet and act as the master behind the plum garden, and she did not dare to leave the garden. In Chinch Umbrella now he is the named worshipper of the Dragon Elephant Sword sect, recognized as Lu Ji's friend, and the named guest of Luopao Mountain. Now he is with Xiao Yunyan and Haoran Jiuzhou does not dare to go anywhere. Mrs. Yan Yan's heart was tense and she thought over and over again. Since she vacated a plum garden and handed it over to the Great Wall of Sword Qi, she completely drew a line with the Ascension Realm monster who was hiding very deeply and whose alias was Border, and chose to follow Lu Ji actively. And then returned to the Haoran world together. He served as the enshrinement of the Dragon Elephant Sword sect founded by Qi Tingji in Nambo Suzhou. Not long ago he served as the guest minister for the Yulong sect. It's not the usual style of this young hidden official. If nothing else, Qin Pingon does things very easily. Qin Pingon said, "People have a heart and a tree has a scar. The vast world, or the Qi practitioners in the vast world, especially the genealogy monks, are a scar in your heart." Mrs. Yan Yan said cautiously, "I'm relieved. Lord Yingguan doesn't have to worry that it'll stick with anyone here, and then cause unnecessary trouble to Dragon Elephant Sword sect." Years have passed anyway, there are not many left of the group of Qi practitioners who embarrassed her back then. Qin Pingon said, "Don't reach a reconciliation with this world. Every so-called reconciliation is self-deception and grievance. Grievance is always grievance, and it will not be reduced in the slightest. Just my own opinion. To be careful, sneaky and quietly dismantle the world. First of all, you have to know what is going on in the world and understand what many people will say and do. In fact, this is Mrs. Yan Yan has done much better than before. When she was poor, she relied on being ruthless and forbearance. As for whether she will retaliate against the world when the next person turns over to become the master, is she intent on taking revenge for her past malice, or repaying the past? Some kind of goodwill or both, everyone has their own aspirations and it is understandable. Speaking of which, Qin Pingon smiled and said, "Whether you are close to me or not and whether you can call me a friend, you don't need to throw a few orange peels to test. If it wasn't for Nwanshu to clean up the house, and Nwanshu would never let me do it for you, I don't care about you." Mrs. Yan Yan smiled, "Lord Yingguan am superfluous." Qin Pingon said, "Qi Tingji has his own ambitions and they are very big. He is also in extreme pursuit of meticulous thinking and rigorous behavior. In other words, he is obsessive-compulsive and has a clean addiction, but he has been hiding it well. In the Jianqi Great Wall he manages a family. The environment is cramped and he can't help but show his openness and stretch his hands and feet. Now he has become a sect and the family is the dominant one in Nampo Suzhou, so this feature will gradually expand and show. Besides, in the eyes of Qi Tingji there is a price tag. This sentence is ugly and it is also suspected of telling people right and wrong, but I don't want Dragon Elephant Sword sect because of you, because of something, cause Lu Ji and Qi Tingji to turn against each other, a good situation, put it into running water." No matter what others think, just say that I, in a sense, regard the Dragon Elephant Sword sect of Pazuo continent and the Qingping Sword sect of Tongye continent as the continuation of the incense of the Great Wall of Sword Qi. Lu Ji has her own pursuit of swordsmanship. It's not what she wants to be distracted by asking people about swords. He doesn't like to think too much. He doesn't like to think too much. A friend, once she hands you a sword, it will only be heavier. Lu Ji doesn't care much about the rules of the Confucian Temple, but in the next 100 years, the Confucian Temple will restrict the great monks only more and more strictly. This is not an alarmist, just like myself. Because of a certain plan, I was mentally prepared to be closed down by the Confucian Temple for 100 years, and then I myself had to be thrown by Li Xing to be with Lu Cha for a period of 100 years, every day. Practice sword fishing and fishing. Xiao Yunyan's realm is not enough. Although he is a sword immortal, he is not good at fighting people. Besides, his ambition is not to reach the top of swordsmanship. He used to be, and it will be the same in the future. If you want me to say, we Xiao Jianxian are the people who live a very transparent life. It is better to have a glass when you are drunk. When you are thirsty, you drink water like dew. When you are old, you will be healthy and worry-free, and you will be a longevity fairy in the world. There are 2 reasons. How to behave in the world and why he went up the mountain to cultivate the Tao. He thoroughly thought about it and really did a good job. So Xiao Yunyan is not suitable for you. Mrs. Yan Yan became more and more confused. What exactly do you want to say, Qin Pingon? Qin Pingon said, I have told you such a big story after going around. To put it simply, in fact, in one sentence, the one you can rely on in the end is always yourself. Before and after the truth, the pros and cons, the big and the small, I will tell you, Qin Pingon alone. When Mrs. Yan Yan heard this, she only felt that her heart was cold, and she added another great grievance, didn't she? Do you have any reason to say so? Qin Pingon said with a smile. I believe in Meijing today, so when something happens in the future, it may not be pleasing to ask the suzerain Qi Tingji for help, but it is a pleasure to ask Lu Ji to come forward to solve it. But after all, it is easy to get out of hand. Even if Qi Tingji is willing help clean up that mess. Don't ask Lu Ji to say anything, but you will definitely be wearing small shoes. So you have to rely on yourself. For example, write a letter to Luo Pashan, say hello to me, and make sure to be there when you call. Qin Pingon only gave 2 such verbal promises, his best friend Lu Jinglong and Suishan Shinjun. The latter was due to his husband. Qin Pingon traveled to Suishan last time, leaving a promise of, but by dispatch. Qin Pingon smiled and said, even if I wasn't in the mountains or even Houran Tianxia at the time, so I couldn't arrive at the first time, I would say hello to Zhu Lian and Cui Dongshan in advance, and take your request as the upper and lower too. Zong's priority. Don't worry, I will let the person who provokes you or Zongmin know what it means to ask for trouble. Mrs. Yan Yan was dazed, and when she regained her senses, she remained silent. She just had a good manner and wished the young hidden officer a blessing. Wearing a blue shirt, he stood by the railing. Mrs. Yan Yan was lying on the railing. She didn't need any makeup. She was naturally charming, and she was naturally plum blossom. It seems that if the 2 sides don't talk about business, there is nothing to talk about, and there is some silence for a while. She suddenly turned her head and asked, Qin Pingon, talk to me today. Take out the colored knots first, then give out my real name, then tell Sect Master Qi, Mr. Lu and Xiao Yunyan's own personalities, and finally explain their original intentions to me. Is it also a dismantling of me? Don't put a good thing, a good word, in such a strange way. By the way, Qin Pingon, what is the plan you mentioned earlier, and the consequences are so serious? Defraud Yang Ji, who has been pardoned by the Confucian Temple, and hack it to death, and wait for him to be arrested by Li Xing to go to Gongdalan to be locked up. Yunmu Peak is adjacent to Huanghu Mountain, and the mountain is like a mountain climbing slowly and then suddenly rushing down the mountain, and the sea of clouds pours like a waterfall in an instant. For the first time, Qin Pingon personally supervised the construction of this far-flung peak, and worked with Zhu Lian on every detail. Because of the long-distance travel, including Zushan Luopao Mountain, Zhu Lian, the big housekeeper, is almost in charge of the civil construction. Qin Pingon bought a lot of large bluestone slabs and planned to pave the entire Yuanmufeng Mountain Road into a bluestone road. Bamboo fences were erected on both sides, and green bamboos were everywhere in the mountains. Every morning he would accompany Xiaomi to patrol the mountain, and then go to the account room of Quan Mansion to accompany Wei Wenlong and Zhang Jiazhen to reconcile the accounts. After returning to the bamboo building, Qin Pingan replied to some invitations by hand. In addition to teaching boxing to Zhou Xian, Qin Pingan was breathing and practicing swords. Guizhou didn't like to go to the sword platform, but often went to Xianxia mountain to hang out. He was often accompanied by a girl in a mink hat, and encouraged Guizhou to form a gang together. Qin Lingjun closed for 2 hours every day and then went out on time. Either he went to the mountain gate to chat with Daoist Xianwei, or he went to Xianxiang for inspection. Brother Jia became the second steward of Fengyuan Ferry. Home, I can only argue with the white-haired boy who has been promoted. On the way back and forth he looked at the empty Xingting pavilion. Bai Xian, the little bastard, is no longer there to drink tea at the stall. Qin Lingjun felt that it was not a good experience. I was thinking of when to persuade the master. Well, why don't you call Bai Xian back? Be careful to be dug into the corner by the big white goose again. Don't we have to damage a future general who can be used? A hero who dares to fight with Pei Qian? There are not many. Look at the white head of the Taihui sword sect. Do you dare now? Said Bai Xian, a boy with great promise. Even though he is young, he has lofty aspirations. Qin Pingan has spent at least 1 hour a day on the second floor of the bamboo building to teach Zhou Xian boxing. The first time I taught boxing, I just let Zhou Xian see the innermost part of boxing, and see its depth in his own small world. The second time he taught boxing, Qin Pingan still didn't feed the boxing, but he was in the house and let Zhou Xian see what it means to be unique. The 24 talismans that appeared on the second floor corresponded to the solar terms of the year one by one. From the beginning of spring rain and Jingzhi to the winter solstice, the small cold and the big cold. Fu Lu, the second floor suddenly filled with fist intent, such as the scorching heat, which made Zhou Xian sweat instantly. When Qin Pingan just twisted the 2 symbols of heavy snow and winter solstice, the room suddenly became cold and bone fist intent. Qin Pingan asked Zhao Shu, pulling open the stake frame. He threw a punch at himself with all his strength. Zhao Xian did the same. Qin Pingan raised his hand and flicked it to break up the fist, and then twisted out the Guyu and Shuangjiang symbols. Zhao Xian punched again and found that he seemed to be throwing out a fist with all his strength, and there was no need for the master to dodge. Qin Pingan did not remove the small formation formed by the 2 talismans, but let Zhao Xian stand against the wall first, and then Qin Pingan raised his fist again. In an instant the fists in the house flowed like a flood and spread out. The fists slammed into the wall violently, and the entire bamboo building shook, and then the entire Luopao mountain began to be filled with mountain air, and the sea of clouds smashed away. Then Zhao Xian was carried downstairs by Zhu Lian, who had been waiting in the corridor outside the door. Zhu Lian carried Zhao Xian, who was covered in blood, on his back. Young master, there is no way to fight that question. Boxing, the location remains the same. Why don't the time slow down? What if it doesn't snow in the capital of Nanyuan Kingdom this year? Why not? Let's talk about it next year. The year after that is fine too. Qin Pingan chuckled. You said it's a coincidence. I'm a chi trainer. What's more, it happens that the 5 elements are complete and the snow is not a problem. You can snow as much as you want. Zhu Lian said. Then I admit defeat? Qin Pingan smiled and said, I advise you to save yourself and don't show your enemy here and be weak. He was full of confidence and gave a punch to someone, only to be punched directly in the face by the other party. This kind of embarrassing thing, Qin Pingan will never do it again. Zhu Lian smiled and said, Young master shouldn't have borrowed that book of boxing for me. Qin Pingan smiled and said, If you can't lie to me lightly, then start to scare me? Are you using the art of war? After that he taught Zhao Xian boxing again. Qin Pingan, the master, may have finally adjusted his mentality, so Zhao Xian began to suffer. Although there are no heavy words of Senior Cui, but for a 4-level martial artist, Qin Pingan's fists and feet are not light. Practice makes perfect, and then teach boxing later because Zhao Xia's physical limit is roughly determined. Qin Pingan can guarantee close to an hour of feeding boxing. Zhao Xian, who had fainted that day, was once again carried by Zhu Lian in a potion bucket. On the corridor on the first floor, Wanshu and Migraine looked at each other. The 2 little girls sighed softly and said nothing. In fact, Zhao Xian is a little better than Pei Qian when he was a child. After all, Pei Qian would often use sticks and bamboo chips to tie his arms and fingers to copy books. Qin Pingan stood silently at the intersection for a moment, then walked back to the corridor and sat. Wanshu is sewing cloth shoes. A needle and thread basket is placed beside him, and a thimble is on his fingers. Taking the soles of shoes is not only physical work, but also requires ingenuity. Grasp the sole of the shoe and pull up the needle and thread with one hand with even force so that the cloth shoes can be light and strong. Xiaomi Li also ordered 2 pairs of cloth shoes with Sister Wanshu. Originally, the right protector wanted to directly order 20 pairs of shoes. As a result, Sister Wanshu gave her a chestnut. No miles. Qin Pingon made an appointment with them and he could come here every day at this time. Wanshu and Xiaomi are sure to come. Qin Lingjun felt that there was nothing to talk about with the 2 girls, so he often sat down for a while and left. Recently, Qin Lingjun has been talking to the left guardian of Qilong Lane, and he has split the helm and newly established the position of general guardian of Qilong Lane. The diligent Zhui boy in Dianmao has been promoted and promoted. Pei Qian would send a letter to Jiasfeng every time after a period of time. According to the old rules, he would write on the envelope, the right protector will open it in person, and Sister Wanshu will read the letter and save it. Therefore, the promotion of the Zhui boy from the right guardian of the Dragon Lane to the chief guardian, even if it is finalized, when the millet grain conveyed the good news at the gate of the mountain, the incense little man first made a gesture of holding the sacred decree with both hands, and then looked solemn, upright. He straightened his clothes, faced south respectfully and bowed down 3 times. As for the left guardian of the Dragon Lane, what else can I do? Continue to lie down and stay still. Qin Lingjun has always been angry with this guy. He is also a lazy person who can't be helped. He doesn't even want to be promoted. There are trivial things on the mountain, not tiring but the best way to kill time. So Wanshu will come here to sew cloth shoes whenever he has free time recently, which is regarded as a break. Carrying a bamboo box on his back and holding a walking stick was once the style brought by the master. Now he is wearing a green shirt and a long coat, and wearing a pair of old cloth shoes with a 1,000-layer bottom too. So Xiaomi Mi, Qin Lingjun and Daoist Xianwei all have ideas. In fact, Mr. Zhu has long liked to wear cloth shoes but no one cared. After all, when Pei Qian first learned that the old cook used to have the nickname Your Highness, he almost didn't burst into tears. Millet grains are better. Anyway, in those few days he just revolved around the old cook and didn't say anything. Is to look hard. Wanshu is probably the most considerate one. In the house, I heard Pei Qian laughing and saying things like, your son banishes the immortal. Millet grains were rolling on the bed with laughter and Wanshu just blinked. Eyes, pursed lips, did not laugh. When the millet swaggered to ask the old cook if he wanted a pair of cloth shoes, he started shouting after entering the door. Zhou Lian wore an apron and carried a kitchen knife out of the kitchen. As a result, the millet looked down and saw that it was a pair of cloth shoes. Then he looked up again. There are kitchen knives, one old and one young, big eyes staring at small eyes. Anyway, the scene was quite embarrassing. Wanshu lowered his head and bit off the thread and asked curiously, Master, is that origami swallow a gift? The 5 sacred mountains of Middle Earth, the woman Shanjun from Yanji Mountain on the Gongdalan side, once gave out an origami black-robed swallow, which can be regarded as an incense villain, and only needs to be placed on the plaque or beam of the ancestral house. And the closer it is to the famous mountain, the more spiritual it is. Qin Pingon nodded with a smile. I'm very reluctant to give it away, but I feel at ease even if I give it away. Qin Pingon lay on his back, put his hands under his head, raised his legs and asked with a smile, Wanshu millet grains, you said that Sun Yuanji has worked so hard to practice boxing. What is he pursuing? To say that Sun Yuanji lived in the mountains to cultivate Taoism, he was so tireless he seemed to be able to understand a little bit. From then on, there was a difference between immortals and ordinary people. The pursuit of proving the Tao and longevity, even if he practiced a little, could prolong his life. But she practiced boxing like this every day, summer to autumn solstice, winter to spring, year after year, rain or shine. Logically speaking, there must be an idea and hope, but it seems that Sun Yuanji has not said what must be done, as if practicing boxing is just a matter of in practicing boxing. Even a person as patient as Qin Pingon would be so bored that he wanted to help Sun Yuanji make a rough calculation. How many steps he had taken over the years. Wanshu thought for a while and said softly, Mr. Zhu said that she has a self in boxing. Pei Qian said that she wanted to prove that women have great achievements in boxing. Qin Lingjun said that she is. Each has his own opinion. I think Sister Tsun, maybe it's just doing something that I really like. The result in the eyes of others doesn't seem to be that important, and maybe this process is the best result. Qin Pingon nodded. I understand a bit. Millet grains were originally lying on the green bamboo corridor, holding their cheeks with both hands and counting the white clouds passing by outside the cliff. 1, 2, 3. When the good man was lying down, she immediately rolled over and then rotated half a circle, lying on her back together with the good man. The owner of the mountain followed his example and swayed his legs. Qin Pingon closed his eyes. The last time Jiasfeng Patriarch Hall discussed matters, because at that time, I didn't think about going to Tongyi's Hao to create the next sect. Qin Pingan's earliest idea was that Cui Wei of Yuanyingjing would sit on the sword worship platform and practice swords with 9 sword immortal embryos there. So the right side of Sui Sui suddenly asked to use the sword worshipping platform as a dojo during the discussion in the Zhuxian. Qin Pingan just used an excuse to refuse this matter, saying that it was a sect elsewhere. Jindan Kaifeng and Luopao Mountain must be nascent soul realm. As a result, the 9 children Yu Qingzhang, He Xiangting and Yu Yu apprenticed as teachers and left Aquarius. Qing Chaolu, He Gu and Yu Xiehui apprenticed to their respective teachers. Since their masters were all members of the Qingping Sword Sect Patriarch, they changed their genealogy and went to Tongya Continent as a matter of course. Bai Xian and King Sun Chun, although they didn't have them, stayed in the Cave Heaven Dojo on Mi Xiefeng to practice their swords. In the end, the only ones who really stayed on Luopao Mountain were Nalan Yuyu and Yao Xiaoyan. What's more, Nalan Yuyu, a small abacus for money fans, also likes to follow the master who is the master of Luopao Mountain, take the Fengyuan ferry together, travel south and north and cross the 3 continents. When you think of a good idea that can make money, jot it down. Qin Pingan opened his eyes, sat up and sat cross-legged, sighing, with Qingping Sword Sect on Luopa Mountain, it will be difficult to increase the number of sword cultivators in the future. Millet sat up and nodded vigorously. How can this be good? Qin Pingan stretched out his hand and rubbed her little head. This clever and broad-minded man, can you help me come up with an idea? Millet nodded, crossed her arms around her chest, closed her eyes and frowned with 2 pale and yellowish brows. Qin Pingan didn't bother her, turned his head and asked with a smile. Nuanshu, those idle vassal hilltops beyond the far curtain peak, do you have a favorite place? If there is, let me know and I will keep it for you. The 10 vassal hilltops that are now idle include Huimen Mountain, Cinnabar Mountain, Weixia Peak, Baijiantai, Xiangshan Mountain, Yuanmu Peak and Xiaodigang. The 3 hills that were once rented out and then rented back, Baolu Mountain, Kaiyun Peak and Xianchao Mountain, can naturally be used as Kaifeng addresses now. On the other side of Huanghu Mountain, there is already a water house under the water flood, and the 2 Dragon King baskets of Nuanshu and Qinlingjun have also been refined there into a great array of mountains and rivers. Among them Yuanmu Peak. Qin Pingan had already given it to Li Baoping. That's why Chunyang Zhenren would engrave a poem on the cliff there before. If Jiang Chu did not become a direct disciple of Cui Dongshan, changed the genealogy and went to Qingping Sword Sect, then as the first cultivator of Fulu in the strict sense of Luopao Mountain, when Jiang Chu succeeded in forming a golden elixir in the future, Baolu Mountain is reserved. It was for Jiang. On the other side of Xiaodugang, Lin Shui, Yulu and Xia each chose a mansion that they had an eye for. It's just that once you become a Confucian gentleman and a sage, you can't serve as a genealogy monk of any Xianfu sect, or make a name for worship. In the mountains to the west, there are still more than 10 immortal clan forces left behind, just like the Yidai Peak who descended the mountain as the Huangliang faction. The last time Jiang Shangzhen spoke directly, those unfamiliar immortal houses, as long as the buyer and the seller, you and I wish, there will be incense love. There is nothing in the world that cannot be solved by a bunch of money from Guyu. If there is, add more money. If it is just such a sentence, it is not the behavior of Chief Luo Shanzhou, and Jiang Shangzhen's last sentence is the essence. As long as the mountain master opens his mouth today, I will knock on the door when I leave Jisa Peak. Tomorrow, if there is an immortal master who does not move out of the mountain with a smile, even if I am the new chief enshrined, I don't pay attention to what I do. In fact, the last time Jiasfeng Patriarch Hall discussed the matter, Wei Wenlong of Chuanfu had already made it clear that his own Luopaishan had already paid off his debts. On the account books of Chuanfu, the so-called slight surplus means that there are still 3,600 tablets on the books. Guyuqian's cash. This is not even counting the 600 gold and copper coins in the treasury. Wanshi shook his head and said, Master, I'm still in the Dragon Gate realm and am not even a golden pill. I'm still far from nascent soul, so I don't need to stay. And the girls in pink skirts are not willing to leave here, no matter how close they are to Luapa Mountain. They are not Luapa Mountain after all. Qin Pingon smiled and said, then don't worry. It seems that on their side the mountain master said the same thing the most, that he was not in a hurry. Unconsciously repeatedly said. Qin Pingon continued. A certain uncle is different. He is already worried about whether to choose the Grey Mountain or the Cinnabar Mountain. On the Nujiadu side he asked this question on purpose. There's no fuss. Muanshu frowned, smiled again and continued to lower his head to sew cloth shoes. Just like that, another day Baiyun walked up the green hill, coming and going. In the Xianxia mountain, in the apricot and peach blossoms, the sound of the flute chanted the sky full of moonlight. The 2 adjacent shops in Qilong Lane were closed. The old cook rewarded himself by frying 2 dishes of appetizers, flipping a page of boxing manuals with each sip of wine. Xiao Imo glanced out the window in the private book building that his son named Liang Dang. He wanted to say something but remembered the teaching of the sun, so he held back his words. Daoist Xianwei worked hard to watch the door all day, read at night with the lights on, and occasionally wrote something with a pen and ink. The predecessors benefited people today, and people today also want to make some contributions to future generations. Someone rode a donkey into the mountain, swaying and in a relaxed mood. But of course it is a donkey made of a talisman. People who practice Taoism climb mountains and mountains. If they want to cherish their feet, they like to use this type of talisman as a means of transportation, but the price is not low and there is a lot of wear and tear. Qi practitioners in the lower 5 realms often buy them affordable, cannot afford. The man was sloppy with a full beard, riding a small donkey and chanting, shaking his head and looking contented. There was still a long way to go to Luopao Mountain. When 1 person and 1 donkey were about to cross the stream stone bridge, a green shirt appeared on the opposite side and smiled. Whoever the donkey is carrying is the only poem. Lu Baqiao laughed and said, Qin Pingon, every time I see you I feel that I am extraordinarily handsome. Good opening statement. Qin Pingon smiled. Brother Baqiao, have you been to Xiaogu Mountain and Xingyang Mountain this time? Next time you go, remember to report my name. It's fine to stay for a few more days. Just stay at Bailude going through Yunlu and I Yuerong, the former shopkeeper of the inn, and Wei Yueshan, the ferry manager, are friends and can keep accounts. Lu Baqiao was stabbed in the heart all of a sudden and his face suddenly embarrassed. You are the one who talks a lot. After the ceremony, although Xingyang Mountain, who had just joined the sect, became a laughingstock on one continent, it was not all bad. For example, Su Jia, whose sword heart was broken by the Yellow River in Fengliyuan in the early years, returned to Xingyang Mountain. Although Su Jia had already no longer a sword repairer, she was still reincorporated into the genealogy of the ancestral hall. It's just that the outside world doesn't know. In fact, Su Jia has a new opportunity to continue to practice swords. She often travels between Xiaogu Mountain and Cornell Peak. But Wu Tijing, a close disciple of the mountain master Bamboo Emperor, inexplicably broke away from the genealogy and left. Xingyang Mountain is missing. As the mortal enemy of Xingyang Mountain, today's Fenglei Garden, because the owner of the garden, the Yellow River, has rushed to the wild world and now he is at the Ferry of the Sun, and there is still a junior brother Lu Baqiao, a swordsman in the Yuaning realm, sitting on the top of the mountain. Moreover, Lu Baqiao is also one of the 10 young people selected by Bao Pingzhou himself. Of course, the specific ranking has been falling and falling again. It's just that compared to Xingyang Mountain, which already has 2 Jade Pure Realm Sword Immortals, if it's just a competition of paper strength, Fengliyuan is at a disadvantage. Qin Pingon asked with a smile, why did you think of coming to Luapa Mountain? I made an appointment with my senior brother to become Jade Pu within 100 years. Isn't it more than 90 years away? With my sword training qualifications, what's the hurry? Lu Baqiao turned over and got off the back of his donkey. You can't keep your head closed when practicing swordsmanship. Look at Fengxue Temple Wei and Jin, and then look at you and Lu Xianyang, who doesn't like to sway around. The 3 of you are all 4. I entered the Jade Pure realm when I was in my teens, and the reason why I am still a nascent soul is that I descended the mountain too late and the number of times was too few. As for joining Yupu, Lu Baqiao is really not conceited. He does have a bit of confidence, but if you say immortal brother Huang, he can see it. Lu Baqiao can only rely on it. In the past, the Earth Immortals of the Aquarius continent climbed to the platform together, and whether they could see the ancient Tianmen was the best touchstone. Lu Baqiao thief asked Cici, why are you willing to hand over the right side of Sui to Shizong? Xiaxan and Xiazong are too powerful and it is always a taboo on the mountain. Of course, Luopa Mountain doesn't have to worry about this. Lu Baqiao still has great confidence in Qin Pingan. He established 2 sects in just 30 years. Besides, the master of Qinshan is the one who grew up with Lu Baqiao. Qin Pingan said angrily, "What is there to give up? She is Jianxiu and Qingping Jianzong is a kendo sect. If she stays in Luopao Mountain she will be called a ghost." There are 10 young people in Beipingzu led by Ma Kushuan of Zhenwu Mountain who is at the top of the list, followed by Xieling of Longquan Jianzong, Ma Kuxuan's teacher Yu Shiwu and Kai Jinjian of Green Juniper Peak of Yunxiu Mountain. On the right of Sui Mountain of Luopao Mountain Zhang Yun, Zhou Ju from the academy, and a loose monk named Zhao Shituo are on the list, while the right side of Sui is also a sword cultivator like Lu Baqiao, so Xieling and Yu Shiwu surpassed the ranking, respectively. Afterwards, Lu Baqiao, who has fallen out of the top 3, is very likely to be squeezed to the 5th position. As a result, I heard that Sui ran off to the right, went to Tongye Continent, and served as a worshipper in the Patriarch's Hall on the lower sect of Luopao Mountain. As a result, there were 10 young people in Baoping Continent, which was equivalent to a vacancy. This made Lu Baqiao very happy. He lay still and didn't do anything, so he kept the seat under his buttocks. Therefore, in Fenglei Garden recently when I saw those elders who only speak slanderous words, Lu Zhenxian waste the rod is hard, the voice is loud and the speech is rushed. Qin Pingan smiled and said, "You are lucky there are many geniuses in the younger generation of Fengliyuan, and there will be no worries of no successor in 200 or 300 years. Otherwise, with the character of the owner of Huangyuan, before going down the mountain you can directly drop a decree and let you practice your sword obediently for 100 years. After the death of Li Tuanjingbing, Fengliyuan credited the big disciple Huang He for provoking it. On the other side of Xingyang Mountain, whether it is Bamboo Emperor, the owner of the first-line peak of Zushan, or Xiayun Sui, the old patriarch of the Jade Pure Realm on the Full Moon Peak, I really don't dare to ask the sword against the Yellow River in the nascent Soul Realm. No one dares to say hi. One can win." Shanmen not only did not collapse, the family is in the middle of the road, but showed a thriving momentum. Moreover, several of Lu Baqiao's younger brothers and nephews were all extremely talented young sword cultivators. Lu Baqiao nodded and said, "According to what my senior brother said, Song Daoguang, Zai Xiang, Xing Yoheng, Nangong Xingyan, all of them have the hope of entering the nascent soul realm in the future." Lu Baqiao rubbed his chin. "Qin Pingan, don't you think it strange? Why does it seem that the Earth Immortal Sword cultivator of our Aquarius Island has become worthless since Wei and Jin entered the 5 realms?" Qin Pingan smiled and said, "Maybe a certain fishing net is broken?" Lu Baqiao asked in confusion, "How do you say it?" Qin Pingan said, "It's useless to talk too much, just experience it yourself." Lu Baqiao led the donkey and said with a smile, "I have a nephew named Xing Yoheng, you probably haven't heard of it. This Xing Yoheng, who seems to be hanging around every day, is actually the most diligent in his practice behind the scenes, which is called desperate. Every time he leaves the dojo he pretends to be surprised. Alas, why is a certain senior brother practicing swords in seclusion again? Just a piece of shit. But Lu Baqiao likes it very much like himself." Qin Pingan said, "I know, a very young Dragon Gate sword cultivator. His killing power is very outstanding among the pure sword cultivators. Why, this is a golden pill. If I remember correctly, Xing Yoheng is only 3 years old now. Are you in your early 10 years? Lu Baqiao nodded with a smile. "There is an element of luck, but in the end it is still successful in forming a pill. It is related to a mysterious Xianxia opportunity. Because it involves the inside story of the mountain gate, I won't tell you any more. Anyway, it is Fenglei Garden. I'm going to hold a small-scale opening ceremony on the day of Li Xiao, and only invite some acquaintances. My uncle annoys me every day saying that since Qin Jianxian and I have known each other for a long time, how good is the relationship? Hurry up, we will settle this matter with Luopao Mountain, and our Fenglei Garden should arrange seats earlier. Moreover, the uncle gave a death order. Qin Jianxian must come in person and no one else can do it for Luopao Mountain. Since Qin Jianxian visited Lushan in person last time, his tail is almost up in the sky. We Fengliyuan can't be worse than a Huangliang pie. I'm worried that it's just Feijian sending a letter. Please don't move Qin Jianxian, who has a lot of business and he will refuse when he finds any excuse. Then I will be embarrassed. My uncle is not very good-tempered. The sole of my shoe hit my face. I will come here in person and invite you to participate in this celebration, and we will not make up those falsehoods. Just don't let me go home empty-handed, just it's not worth making your friend. Nowadays in Fenglei Garden, those senior antiques are worried about the owner of the garden every day, praising Xing Yoheng and the others and then scolding Lu Baqiao again. In general that's how it is. Qin Pingon tutade. I've seen people who collect money from sect celebrations on the mountain, but I've never seen you go to the top of another mountain like this and ask for gifts. Lu Baqiao said confidently, second brother, don't say big brother, just those night tour banquets that you and Wei Shanjun teamed up to play together. The entire Beiyue realm is almost full of complaints. Compared with you I am far behind. Qin Pingon laughed and scolded. Fuck you, Weibo has held so many night banquets, does it have anything to do with me? If you don't believe it, I can bring Wei Shanjun to confront him. Is there a snow? The money goes into the pockets of my lousy mountain. Lu Baqiao suddenly said, if you don't say it, I'll forget it. It would be great if Wei Shanjun could take a break from his busy schedule this time. Remember to send me a message to Pai Yunshan. Qin Pingon smiled and said, I am also lucky to have made such a friend. Lu Baqiao said, don't talk nonsense, just say whether you will go or not. Qin Pingon said helplessly, go, promise to go. Lu Baqiao suggested, let's talk about it first. Today I will use a congratulatory gift to fool the past, and then I will give Feng Liyuan a surprise. It's actually better. Qin Pingon twitched the corners of his mouth. Well, it's a combination of money and man. Of course it's better for brother Baqiao and I have a good face. Someone steered the sword very fast. A sword light dragged out Lu Ying and the wind and thunder were wrapped in the wind, but it did not rise above the mountain. They chose to stick to the ground and swept long, turned around the winding mountain road and rushed to Qin Pingon and Lu Ba in an instant. In front of the bridge, the swordsman girl bent her knees slightly, hovered suddenly and fell to the ground, pinched the sword, and put the dangling long sword with purple electricity in the scabbard behind her back. The girl who was hurrying on the road stood there. Just now Yu Jian was busy eating cakes on her way. At this moment the girl was holding the unfinished cake and hid her hand behind her, and timidly called out to Uncle Lu. Lu Baqiao looked strange and introduced with a smile. This is my nephew Nangong Xingyan, the younger disciple of senior brother Huang. When he entered the cave, senior brother personally gave him the Taoist name Tingni, and then gave him a secret Ku Peijian purple gold snake. Besides Nangong Xingyan's sword refining, he also trains in thunder technique. She was taken up the mountain by her senior brother when she was very young. Her hometown is in Yuezhou. It's a beautiful place with beautiful mountains and rivers. It produces wine and is so beautiful. Nangong Xingyan is very envious of you. You Luopa Mountain. Qin Pingon nodded and smiled. I have seen fellow Taoist Tingni. The appearance of a young girl, her real age is not too old, she is a 20-year-old sword cultivator of the view of the sea. Genius. Cultivator Jiazi Lea Dongfu, Xianxia entered the middle five realm at the age of 100, but he was still young. It means that a cultivator at the age of Jiazi is of course not easy to be in the middle five realms, but he can no longer be called a genius and Jianxiu is an exception. Like Qiu Ji of Jiaifeng from Tongye continent, he seems to have come from a continent of spiritual energy and sword intent. And there is also Chai Wu from Aquarius continent. It's beyond the realm of genius in the general sense. Comparing them is pointless. Learning boxing is not comparable to Chao Si's talent, and practicing swordsmanship is not comparable to Ning Yao's realm. Now it is a fact recognized by several mountains in the world. Lu Baqiao couldn't help laughing. Nangong Xingyan was wearing a little makeup today, which is absolutely unimaginable in Fenglei Garden. No wonder she came to Huaihuang County and found a reason to leave with her uncle. Said that he wanted to visit the town by himself and finally meet at Luopa Mountain. Lu Baqiao said, the one next to the uncle I don't need to introduce more, the famous Qin Yingguan Qin Shanju. Nangong Xingyan looked stunned and surprised. He had already hidden the cakes in his hand and he respectfully saluted. The sword of wind and thunder Nangong Xingyan has seen Shanju Qin. Lu Baqiao slandered endlessly, pretending and continuing to pretend. Qin Pingon smiled and said, it's a pleasure to meet you. Lu Baqiao rolled his eyes, pretending you continue to pretend. Last time Qin Pingon sneaked to Fenglei Garden to find himself drinking, Lu Baqiao actually mentioned Nangong Xingyan to him. Lu Baqiao said with a smile. We have been walking along the way and we have passed several immortal mansions on the top of the mountain. I saw that many cultivators of genealogy were also looking down the mountain. Why didn't anyone come to the foot of the mountain to get close and fight with you? Say hello? There are 62 mountains in the west. Apart from Piyun Mountain and Luopao Mountain, and the Longquan Sword sect has moved away, there are still a dozen or so foreign powers who own the mountain. Almost all of them are similar to the Huangliang school, and they all belong to the bottom of the first class and the top of the second class in Beipingzu. Otherwise they would not be able to collect a few bags of gold and copper coins, and let the direct disciples come here to try their luck. Qin Ping was placed on deaf ears. In fact, it is mainly people who have been in officialdom and they all know the reason. It's like a large government office with more strict levels. Walking on the road you meet a leader and you don't dare to get close to it. This has nothing to do with the character of the high-ranking official, whether he is approachable or not. Lu Baqiao asked, what on earth did Blacksmith Wan think he moved as soon as he said it was moved? Qin Pingon shook his head, I don't know. Longquan Jinzong moved out of Chuzhou, Lu Xianying took over from Wan Qiong as the suzerain, Shanjun Weibo helped move the mountains and waters came, and finally a huge lake was created. However, the Dali court has not yet been officially named. It is said that officials from the Ministry of Rights of the court have suggested that it should be named Hon Kim Lake or Luojian Lake, and it is also said that it is Lizhu Lake and Fonglong Lake. It seems that today this lake, together with the cloud waterfall on Yuanmu Peak, the crayfish in the sunshine and moonlight, and the 3 rivers in Hongzhou town, make up the 10 sceneries of Zhenchuzu. Lu Baqiao said with a wicked smile. On the way here I saw 2 Shanshui Di newspapers on the side of a ferry, and one of them was bad, saying that Xingyang Mountain Sword Immortal Bamboo Emperor, serving as the chief worshipper of Dali, is actually better than almost every other day. Blacksmith Wan, who did not participate in the discussion of Dali, was even more popular, and Zheng Yangshan quickly wrote a Fengdi newspaper to clarify. Qin Pingon smiled and said, don't be too busy to gloat at misfortune, just wait. When Xingyang Mountain descends, the Huangshan Sword sect may change a word soon. Luopaishan established the next sect, and it is still the Kendo sect in Tonggishao. The Dali court has no concerns. It will definitely support a new Kendo sect after Longquan Jinzong to gather the old Zhu. The number of Qi of the Ying dynasty and finally the 3 Kendo sects formed a 3-legged situation and stabilized the Qi fortune of Kendo in one continent. The only variable at present depends on whether the Yellow River in Fengliyuan can break through the battlefield in the wild world. If the Yellow River can become Jade Pu, the Dali court may be in a dilemma. 2. Pure. Not as good as the Xingyang Mountain Zhufeng Jianxiu, who knows how to judgment the situation. Lu Baqiao pouted. Become the Huangshan Sword sect? It's all fake anyway. Xingyang Mountain deliberately put the mountain down in the territory of the old Zhuang dynasty. The whole continent knows how it is, but there are good people who have helped to make some adjustments. At least 70% of the sword repair embryos still take Fenglei Garden as the first place. Of course I have to thank Luo Pashan. If there is no audience it would be hard to say. Maybe the situation will be reversed from 7-3 to 3-7. Lu Baqiao hesitated for a moment, but still couldn't help but ask, is there any news about my brother? Qin Pingon shook his head and said, we don't have a newspaper from the Confucian temple in Luopao Mountain. After a pause Qin Pingon smiled and said, no news is the best news. Lu Baqiao thought for a while then smiled and nodded, very reasonable. Arriving at the entrance of Luopao Mountain and seeing the mountain owner leading people up the mountain, Daoist Xianwei immediately got up from the bamboo chair, and Qin Pingon helped introduce the identities of the 2 parties. After Xianwei and the 2 distinguished guests bowed their heads, he asked in a low voice, you don't need to record it in the book, right? Qin Pingon hesitated for a moment and said, you don't need to record here, but when you turn around and tell Kong Ho, Lu Baqiao and Nangong Xingyan in Fenglei Garden are visiting Luopa Mountain today. Lu Baqiao asked, what do you mean? Qin Pingon explained, someone in Luopa Mountain has just been in charge of compiling the chronology. First Chunyang Lu Yen, then Xiao Yun Yen and Mrs. Yen Yen, made the white-haired boy who was a self-appointed genealogy officer so happy, and several times in private he asked Xianwei Daoist priest to let Xianxian replace her as a janitor. It's easy to discuss. If Xianwei wasn't the mountain of books left by Brother Dafeng, After hearing the numbers that climbed all the way, he would be really tempted. Lu Baqiao immediately became excited. Daoist Xianwei, remember to make a request to the monk who compiled the chronology. Don't just write your name, it's better to add my realm with Nangong Xingyan, a Yuanying who is less than 100 years old, a Sevuer who is only 18 years old is a sword cultivator. When they got to the mountain, Qin Pingon asked the old cook to fry a few dishes with wine and drink with Lu Baqiao. Nangong Xingyan didn't want to disturb the reminiscence between Master Uncle and Qin Shanzhu, so he followed the girl in pink dress named Wanshu to live in a mansion next to Lu Baqiao's mansion. When Lu Baqiao burped, patted his stomach and hummed a tune, and returned to his residence drunk, the girl Jinxiu seemed to be going out. Nangong Xingyan sighed softly. Uncle Lu, do you really know Qin Jianxian? The two sides saw that their relationship was indeed very good, and they were willing to come down the mountain to pick up Master Lu in person, and they could have a drink when they went up the mountain. Lu Baqiao laughed angrily. Otherwise? Feel the conscience and tell me, is your uncle the kind of person who likes to brag? Glancing sideways, Lu Baqiao said, hee. I really don't necessarily have a good conscience. There are some things that a girl is worried about and annoyed. Oh, it's too late to be happy in the future. Young, the scenery is not small. He is such an unreasonable person, so in Fenglei Garden, no matter young or old, male or female, whether it is the direct descendant of the patriarch or the outside disciple, they all like to scold or ridicule Lu Baqiao. It is not that he is wronged, it is purely Lu Baqiao asking for it. But it is such a man who is not stingy in his own sect, with good aptitude, high realm and not bad appearance. When I came down the mountain, I was only on the side of a woman, and I didn't dare to say a word or take a look. Without saying a word, Nangong Xingyan directly hit Lu Baqiao in the rib with an elbow. Uncle Lu Baqiao stooped down on the spot, gasped for air, bared his teeth and screamed in pain. Don't look at the little girl who looks soft and weak with a slender figure and gentle eyebrows. In fact, her temper is very short-tempered, coupled with her relationship with the flying sword of life. So in Fengliyuan, no one is willing to practice asking swords with her. Her ancestors and senior brothers in Jindan realm only teach swordsmanship, and never end up in person to learn from each other. Brother Huang, he has always regarded this most likely to be the direct descendant of a closed disciple. Huang He, who almost never publicly praised others, only praised her as the only one who had the true meaning of the word lei, among the swordsmen of Fenglei Garden. Lu Baqiao took out a jade card from his sleeve and handed it to Nangong Xingyan. He smiled and said, the congratulations sent by Qin Shanzhu in advance. You will give it to Xing Yoheng later. Nangong Xingyan took the jade tablet, looked at it carefully and asked in confusion, this is it? Lu Baqiao had to explain. It turned out that Qin Pingon, who was the newly appointed hidden official at Nachanbazi Chamber, had sent out a batch of nothing cards, secretly made by the Summer Palace. The shape is extremely simple and elegant, the material of the jade plate is not too precious, and there is nothing outstanding about it. Only one side is engraved with Hao Ran Tianxia, the other side is engraved with Sword Qi Great Wall, and the word hidden official in small seal is carved next to it. The previous teeny lowercase number. Except for Tongye Continent, which did not have a cross-continental ferry, Howran 8 continents, different ferry boat owners and stewards, each got a trouble-free card engraved with different numbers, such as Wuxia 9, Tangfei Qian 12, Fuyao Island, Weipin Ferry Steward Baishi 13, Aizhou, Nanji Ferry Boat Jianggaotai 16. On the Xinjia Island in the southwest, Lu Shen, the owner of Nishang, is 96. In addition, Dai Hao, the Thai soup of Aizhou, and Lu Yu, the falcon bell of Luxiazu, have their own harvests. And Qin Pingon himself kept 3 nothing cards and gave Lu Baqiao this one, which was one of them, and the number was 6. Another no-mind card was given to Lu Lao Shenxian in Tongyi's Hao Qinghu Palace. The number was 8. Only the last piece was left, and Qin Pingon didn't intend to give it away but kept it for himself. The number was 55. Lu Baqiao smiled and said, this thing is very valuable now. Fengliyuan Jinxiu never cared about foreign affairs in the mountains. He was just at the wine table. Qin Pingon didn't say much about the value of these trouble-free cards, but Lu Baqiao was not a fool. Of course he knew that this was a good thing that money can't buy. Lu Baqiao joked, I finally met a real person, how do you feel, are you disappointed? Nangong Xingyan snorted, disdained to answer such an idiot question. On the other side of Fenglei Garden she had seen the mirror flower's moon before and she had a mantra. How could there be such a handsome man in the world? Now it seems that when she returns to Fenglei Garden, the mantra will change slightly. There really are such handsome men in the world. Lu Baqiao shook his sleeves and said softly, "It may be hard to like someone who is not destined to like you." Nangong Xingyan shook his head, "Uncle sure, I'm not like you, I will never be half dead like you." Lu Baqiao smiled bitterly. Nangong Xingyan was in high spirits. Whether I like someone or who likes me or not has nothing to do with half a penny. It's like looking at the water from the mountains. The water and the mountains are still there. People who like it just go away. I just like it. Lu Baqiao smiled knowingly. Do young people today dare to love and hate so much? Lu Baqiao sighed. Girl, the reason why you are so neat and tidy and not dragging your feet is because you just admire it, not really like it. Nangong Xingyan nodded. Maybe. She's not a nympho. Lu Baqiao waved his hand. Go for a walk by yourself. The guarded uncle is about to fall asleep. I warn you not to mess around. Uncle Lu is a very decent person. Nangong Xingyan snorted and turned to leave. Lu Baqiao sat alone on the steps and drank 2 pots of plum wine. The entrance was so good that he had a strong drinking spirit. The man hadn't recovered yet and his eyes were hazy. The courtyard is quiet with the green window screens of plantains. Lu Baqiao is chewing the aftertaste of the wine, and he only feels that the plum wine is sour. He said that he was worried about a letter and asked Qin Pingan not to move. Of course it was a lame excuse. Lu Baqiao knew best about Qin Pingan's nostalgia. Qin Pingan heard about this and as long as there is nothing to do he will probably rush to congratulate him in person. Lu Baqiao just wanted to go down the mountain. Worry floated to the eyebrows, and the hearts of the old and young are exhausted. On the other side of the roof someone smiled meanly. Brother Baqiao, don't frown, who are you worried about? Come, continue drinking. Lu Baqiao laughed and scolded, stood up, pointed his toes, went to the roof and found that there were already 6 pots of wine. Lu Baqiao immediately became a little cowardly, and Qin Pingan ignored him and lifted the mud seal of the pot of wine by himself. Lu Baqiao gritted his teeth, sat next to him, hugged the 3 pots of wine beside him and scolded him. Qin Pingan laughed and said that whoever stopped the wine would have his grandson. Going down the mountain again and again I will grow old. The world is divided into a bright moonlit night, and 2 bachelors are drinking. There is no need to persuade you to really drink. You are so drunk that you don't know how many days in the world. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.